Good morning. Let's go ahead and call this meeting to order. Please turn your cell phone to the vibrate, silence, or off setting. Gary Sansing Public Forum is intended for matters not included on the agenda for the upcoming BCC meeting. Citizens wishing to address items on the agenda, please sign up to speak to such item at the regular Board of County Commissioners meeting. Speakers, please refrain from abusive or profane remarks, disruptive outbursts, protest, or any other conduct which interferes with the orderly conduct of the Gary Sansing Public Forum. Each speaker will be limited to 2 minutes unless otherwise determined by the chairperson this morning to allow sufficient time for all speakers. The Gary Sansing Public Forum may end 5 minutes prior to the scheduled start of the upcoming meeting to allow the meeting to commence on time. The first speaker this morning is Keith Bowe.
Thank you, Commissioners. What I'd like to address today is District 2 derangement syndrome. I see evidence of District 2 derangement syndrome sitting before me on the dais, and it's been going on for much longer than the last 2 commissioners. It was evident when Mel Pino had a case of champagne and offered drinks for an after party in the parking garage after the ending of a BOCC meeting before adjournment when it was the last meeting for Commissioner Underhill. It's also evident when using Commissioner Kohler's report he sent to the Admiral about base traffic. Why send the District 1 Commissioner who's got no experience with military to explain what he didn't produce? It's also evident when Commissioner Kohler was skipped and shuffled around as the D2, who was supposed to be rotated into the position of chair and should now be in the position of assistant chair or co-chair. How many times have each of you sat as either the chair or co-chair when in the last more than a decade, District 2 has had the position perhaps once? That's all I've got to say. We have a derangement syndrome up here, and Gorbachev, tear down that wall.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to respond to that. Keith, I was appointed to serve on the Northwest Florida Defense Communities Board.
Jeff, 1 second. Keith, please have a seat.
Yeah.
Please have a seat. Thank you.
You can still listen while you sit.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I was appointed by the chairman because I served 15 years on the local military affairs committee, as well as growing up in a military family, as well as working on NAS Pensacola for 18 years. I'm very familiar with the topics and the issues at hand, and it was a natural appointment for me. I have nothing against Mike. I respect his military service. I spoke to the commander, Naval Installations Command, the 3-star admiral. I spoke to him in person in a private meeting, and we talked about issues at Whiting Field, we talked about issues at NAS, and we talked about traffic at the Blue Angel Gate. I didn't present any written report. Mike didn't send any written report with me, so I don't know where you're getting your information, but it's incorrect. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, just for clarification, because Jeff, you went in on this. So what had happened back in January, Admiral Quinn had reached out to me and asked me to put some stuff together that would counter the NASP compatibility utilization study. The county administrator was aware of this. I worked with several directors inside of in the county. They sent me stuff. I went back and forth, sent that to Admiral Quinn. We put a point paper together. It was nothing mean-spirited. It was in the interest of the base. That did happen. It's out there. I didn't share with you because I didn't know at the time. I thought Admiral Quinn would, so there was nothing ill-willed by it at all.
No, we've been working on 3 specific projects, Mike. I mean, otherwise you get bogged down in the weeds. Admiral Quinn spoke with Admiral Gray as well, but about any kind of report that I was bringing on behalf of the county, that didn't happen. And I don't know if you wrote a point paper or whatever you did, but we talked about 3 specific issues because those are the things we're going for. Thank you.
That's all I have to say.
Okay, super. The next speaker is Victoria Griffin.
Can I get y'all copies?
Yes, ma'am. Sure. Thank you, Tim.
This some reading material for y'all.
Good morning.
This is about JoJo Villas. As we've been studying the impact of this development to each of our well-established neighborhoods, Wood Run, Finley, and JoJo, we have learned how important the land development codes need to be revamped to respect the current and future developments of the county. Since we started this, Joy Blackman has developed the Professional Advisory Committee to analyze and suggest areas in needed improvement, and she's done an extremely good job on that. I feel that the residents of Escambia County should not be the ones to pay for additional services when a new establishment is developed. I think there should be an impact fee as well as environmental impact fees. I say this because when the proposed development, if it does come through, a holding pond may be behind my home, and the impact fees, environmental impact fees would help the county be able to repair some of those things. I respectfully request that the county change our zone from a high-density mixed use to a low-density residential zone. This would be in line with our neighborhoods that were developed back in the 1970s. I also feel that before large neighborhoods impacting multi-unit housing is approved, nearby neighbors need to be notified in advance with drawings so that the impact can be discussed. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Victoria. The next speaker is Chris Kerb.
Thank you.
Good morning. 2 minutes or 3 minutes?
2 minutes.
Okay. Reason I asked that, Santa Rosa County's having their board meeting this morning too. They actually have a, same thing y'all call a committee of the whole over here, over there, on a Monday, and then on a Thursday they have their regular meeting. And you basically get a total of 6 minutes if you go to both meetings, but and it's all about the people, you know, the people get to talk at public forum, and you know, that's, you guys get elected to listen to what the people say. It's we the people. It's not me the people, it's we the people. But anyway, tomorrow evening at 5 o'clock, downtown Pensacola Library, 1,000 Friends for Florida has done some analyzed growth trends, and they'll be doing a workshop for land use and water quality for up to 2040 predictions. So that's at 5 o'clock. Beach Haven Building Meaningful Communities is also having a meeting in the Beach Haven area. Michael asked me to speak on Forest Creek Apartments flooding. There's a lot associated with Forest Creek Apartments flooding when it comes to the community. And this subject came up last week at the Warrington CRA meeting. You know, talking about that sunsets in December 2025, talking about trying to get that reinstituted for another 30 years. So that's a good thing. But Forest Creek Apartments is one of those flood problem areas that it's probably the worst one in Escambia County, I'd say. And you know, I think there's 80 to 100 families that get displaced in that neighborhood every time we have a major flood event. And I think it may be time for the county to look at putting that back in your radar, especially since we've got a very active hurricane season forecasted. So I didn't see the clock up there,
Yeah.
but thank you.
All right, thank you, Chris. Our systems aren't working. So board, just FYI, we'll be voting during the meeting by hand as well, and I don't believe the screen's going to be working for any item that's on the agenda. So we'll see. Next speaker is Shirley Piritz. And I know it's been a number of times. I think that's your correct last name?
Yes,
finally?
very good.
Okay, super.
Good job,
Yeah.
thank you. Hello, my name is Shirley Piritz, and I live at 1385 Finley Drive. I am here today to speak in opposition to the proposed JoJo subdivision townhomes. First, I want to thank each commissioner who voted for the parking ordinance. This change recognizes that 3 or 4 younger people commonly rent one home and split the cost. Each of them has a vehicle. The same is true for many single adults my age who can no longer afford to rent or buy an entire home and basically rent a bedroom. Even in the so-called nuclear family, children don't stay small for long. Soon they are driving and have their own cars, needing their own parking spaces. Tying the number of parking spaces to the number of sleeping rooms gives parity. Please, commissioners, direct staff to request floor plans for the proposed JoJo units so that the appropriate number of parking spaces can be calculated by staff. Plans should not be approved without first having this data. The footprint of the parking should be tied down before trying to approve the footprint of buildings. I am opposed to this latest plan. The townhomes, although located near the back, are still incompatible in density and intensity, as it crams townhomes on teeny tiny lots instead of the one dwelling per spacious lot that exists currently on Finley Drive. A builder of single-family homes would recognize the huge profit potential in the sale of high-end, large luxury homes on big lots in this much-to-be-desired location. However, a landlord only sees monthly rental income and continues to give incompatible proposals. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Larry Downs, Jr.
Hello, Larry Downs Jr. Plumbing, LLC, because fecal matters. You got to hear it every time now, because that was a lot of, this is just for Barry here. There was a lot of SHIT. I got to say it like for little children, you know. Sensitive ears. Maybe some of y'all might be part of the tissue generation, you know, easily offended. Anyways, Y'all remember when y'all closed down the beaches? The outdoors. You closed it down for a virus that doesn't exist outdoors. The place where you should be getting sun, vitamin D deficiency around the world. Just basic science. We had a local doctor here over in Gulf Breeze. Her name's Dr. Deborah Viglione. She's a real bad ASS, Barry. I mean, I'm assuming I can spell words here. I mean, you know, I'm challenged a little bit, but I'll try. Anyways, here's her book, COVID-19 Vaccines and Beyond. It's not only Dr. Deborah Viglione, but also Dr. James Thorpe. So, y'all did not follow the science. Y'all followed the corporations who make the money, and y'all followed the government. So when you do that, and you find out that you spread misinformation, disinformation, and lies, then you have to apologize. You have to acknowledge where you went wrong. Because I don't want elected. That's the reason why I don't want y'all to run for re-election. I don't need somebody who just does as they're told by the higher-ups. I want some independent thinkers here. I want some people that can open their eyes and their mind and their ears. See what I mean? That's how we've gotten in this position, Barry. You run around outdoors with your mask on. This is not personal. This is everybody. Everywhere. We have to point out the obvious so we don't make these mistakes again. See what I mean? In our time, 2 minutes? There ain't nobody in here. You can't tolerate 3 minutes.
Your time is up, Larry.
Yeah.
Finish.
MissionObvious.com if y'all want to look up some real facts, not this crony science bullcrap.
All right. Thank you. Next
you.
speaker is Sonia Reese.
Still waiting on those apologies, public.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We all take measures to provide regular maintenance on our cars. We make sure that the engines have oil in them or the engine blows up, costing a much higher expense than a few quarts. So it makes sense to administer preventive measures to ensure we don't have to react to crises like a blown engine or like thousands of homes being flooded. So why are we not focusing our efforts on prevention? If Bayou Marcus had just simply been maintained, maybe you would hear less fussing. So now we're sitting on millions of dollars waiting for multiple federal agencies to approve spending to address our stormwater and infrastructure needs. And we have to wait patiently for studies and surveys, and no one knows how many bureaucrats to stick their noses into county business. So whose responsibility is it to go back to the powers that be at the DEP and the DEO and tell them to stop hindering progress for the lowly citizens of Escambia County? I'm just curious, how long did it take to approve of, and how many desk jockeys were involved in the decisions to build a new Publix and a new Wawa? And we can tear down acres of forest, but we can't clean out a creek? It just doesn't make sense. A person who's taken to the ER to be treated for life-threatening injuries isn't given a Band-Aid and sent out the door. And while we do appreciate the small Band-Aid project at Atlas and Pontiac, it doesn't begin to address the problem at large. So can we change our focus to be more proactive and preventive rather than reactive? Can we advocate for rational, common sense decisions that will allow for less spending in the future? And I ask you, how would you feel? What would you do if it were your homes that were constantly in jeopardy of flooding? Thanks for your time.
Thank you. The next speaker is Kathy Rushing.
First-time speaker.
Good morning.
I grew up here. I want to thank you, Commissioner Crowler, for what you did at Bailey and the people that you brought out there. It's a shame that Escambia County allows builders to get away with that crap, what's happened to those people. But now my problem that I'm having is county produced for failure to maintain the drain holes. I live on West Winthrop, and I've got a slope on the east side, and I got a slope on the west side. And here's the drain hole, and it's got to go across. And then I got a load of water coming off of homes. I got a load, and I've got video from Sally, gentlemen, so I can back up my words. I was out there. I had to go across the street to unblock the hole so the water could drain and not back up. It has not been maintained. We need to have certain times of the year, every spring, County Road needs to go wherever these holes are and wherever they drain over to and clean out the ditch. The ditch is full of leaves. Last year in June, when we had that heavy rain, I was out there cleaning the drain hole off. Now, because we have no law about parking on grass right-of-way, my neighbor has killed off about 25 to 30 feet of grass, and you have sand now washing into the drain hole that was never there before. We have got to be more proactive in what's going on. You see, my flooding would be due to Escambia County. And did that my house that I'm in right now, because somebody blocked the drain in '05, the edge of the house got water. I've got buckle over there. All because of that.
Thank you.
I wish y'all would just, Broadway is doing the best they can, gentlemen. But we have to make a schedule of those because that makes y'all responsible.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is George Levy.
Morning, Commissioners.
Good morning, George.
I have 2 copies of my thing for the record.
Thank you.
I'm here to talk about a follow-up and to enter in the public record. Copy of my email I sent to the Escambia County Commissioners, the board. on the 17th regarding house insurance and the insurance industry, BCEG. A large county like Miami-Dade is classified as a 1, like 100% effective. Escambia County is like a 4, which could be as low as 65% effective. Why is the county allowing substandard housing construction? To reduce costs of a house is penny wise and dollar foolish. And I've heard this argument that it's to save the cost of housing, reduce the cost of housing. That's ridiculous when the wind blows and you have a pile of toothpicks and a person's life savings in a pile. There's also mention in the news about the Civic Center repairs. Is there a situation where buildings need repair and not being properly tended to, like maintenance, proper maintenance, like roof repairs? Are there situations where a stitch in time will save 9? Is the county in a rut of building new structures, then failing to maintain them, and then have to knock down and rebuild? Is this a racket? Number 3, I still have a concern and question to your staff legal that has not been responded to. If a misapplication of county codes by staff decisions result in an accident determined to be responsibility of these Escambia County staff making and implementing the decision, would that become the responsibility and liability of the county and ultimately result in higher taxes to the residents? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, George. The next speaker is Jean Brown. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm Jean Brown of 1475 Finley Drive. For 55 years, I oppose JoJo Road Villas development. Is JoJo Road Villas a development plan that can be approved? I have looked at preliminary plans and also at staff comments. There seem to be inconsistencies and incompatibility with the existing neighborhood. Some questions. Planning and zoning. New parking ordinance will require 3 parking spaces per single family or town home. A new plan is required to meet parking requirements and staff comments. Buffering and screening. Development is adjacent to existing single-family homes at least 1 acre. Have 15-foot buffer along all side and rear lot lines where townhomes abut or are adjacent to existing single-family homes. Regarding Bennett, there has been a sale which completely separates this single-family residence from Bennett Apartments. The use is now single-family residential, not multifamily greater than 10, as it appears on the plan. Access. There is no bridge across JoJo Road across the wetlands now. Finley will be constructed to county standards, pipe, stormwater conveyance, curb, sidewalk, resurface. Will it be 18-foot pavement as now? Who will pay? What about the rest of Finley? Left and right turn lanes from Finley onto Jernigan. We were told there is not enough easement for traffic with new development on Finley. Jernigan traffic turning left onto Finley will back up Jernigan's 50-foot right-of-way. Power pole on Jernigan within the 50-foot right-of-way south of Finley blocks the view entering Jernigan. At rush hour, traffic turning left onto Fox Hollow from Jernigan backs up traffic to 9 Mile Road, which has 73 residences in Fox Hollow, 81 proposed on Finley. The T turnaround. Has JoJo Extension east of West Side Drive been vacated? The lift station can't be located within the right-of-way. The amenity area should be fenced and accessible from the development only, not from Finley. Environmental, the plan says a portion of the subject parcel falls within the 20-year time travel contours. Staff comment says that the entire site lies within 7-year time
Thank you,
travel.
Jean.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Yes, ma'am.
Remember Finley JoJo.
All right, Board, that's the last of our public forum. If y'all would indulge, we do have Rear Admiral Kyle Kozad here, and he was hoping to just kind of make a few comments and give him a few minutes to update us on some activities. Thank you, and thank you for being here, Rear Admiral.
Good morning, Commissioners. I appreciate the opportunity here. I listened with great interest to a conversation you all had regarding the National Flight Academy. And by way of introduction, I'm Kyle Kozad, President and CEO of the Naval Aviation Museum Foundation. During those conversations, there were a lot of discussion of the lack of local impact on our STEM outreach program. So I'd like to share some numbers, because when I joined the foundation in 2020, I had this same exact impression that you all did. Very little impact, and I set out to change that. This year, over 2,530 local Escambia County students, many of which attend Title I schools, will attend some sort of STEM outreach, STEM exposure programs at the National Flight Academy or the National Naval Aviation Museum. From a grade of 5 through 12, many at no cost to Escambia County. I'd like to walk through each one of those programs. I'll start with our 5th grade program that's new to the area called Starbase. This year, we estimate that over 1,600 students will attend Starbase on board the National Flight Academy. That's 25 curriculum hours spread out over 5 days. I'll tell you that in the 2 years since we opened, 100% of our Title I schools will have children who attended that program, 100% at no cost to Escambia County. In addition to that, we have 145 summer camp opportunities at no cost to students. We were also recently approved for Starbase 2.0, which is an after-school program allowing 20 students from Warrington Prep Academy an opportunity to go through similar STEM outreach at Warrington Prep. For our middle schoolers, we have the Flight Adventure Deck, and Flight Adventure Deck encompasses primarily field trips to the museum where kids get an opportunity to do 12 to 15 stations where they do hands-on aviation-related exposure to STEM. Escambia County, with the modest cost of busing, participates for free, no cost to the students. This year, we anticipate 732 students. Interesting when you compare that to Santa Rosa County, who takes much greater advantage of the program. They'll have almost quadruple that at 3,219. And this is just all about opportunity, raising your hand and signing up for different sessions. Finally, kind of the capstone program that you talked about, specifically National Flight Academy. The very first year I was here, we had 25 local students who were able to attend. This year, that number is up to 200. And I will tell you that we've worked hard to leverage fundraising. We have 107 scholarships that will go to local students, again, over to the county to decide, and the school district to decide which needs-based students get to attend that. And we have 76 remaining for this summer program. Now, I would opine that, you talked about funding, you talked about different programs. I also have capacity during the school year to set up something similar to Starbase, whether that's a one-day field trip where high schoolers get to come out and go through, different mission planning opportunities, learn about airplanes, learn about technology, or whether that's a 25 curriculum hour program. I just need the help from a funding perspective to be able to put that in place, ready to do that next year with a partnership between the county and the National Flight Academy. Gentlemen, any questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Bergosh and then Commissioner Kohler.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming out, Admiral. And I appreciate that knowledge. I've known about Starbase Atlanta for many years. For some time, I know it was shut down, and then it came back, so I'm very happy about that. In particular, just the 7-day trips to the National Flight Academy. I was at a presentation during Industry Day at NAS Pensacola at the Oaks, and the gentleman who runs it, very, very articulate, well-spoken, was asked that question. And that was the question I had about, and it was a great, everything was all good. Like every state in the union has had students come there for the 7-day program or the 3-day or the one, multiple countries, 60 countries. It's fantastic. And the question that I had was, how many of the students from Escambia County's poorest schools have had the opportunity to do the 7-day trip? And he gave me a percentage of the total that was extremely anemic. I understand there's a cost involved. The context of the discussion Commissioner May and I were having was, we've got $10 million in children's trust funds. We just simply wanted to know, and I'm glad to hear you have 200 set aside. I'm glad about the 107 scholarship. These are facts that need to get out, because frankly, I wasn't aware of it, and that wasn't part of the presentation during Industry Day. But it seemed like an incredibly small percentage of the total was coming from the schools that need it the most. So how can I help from this position? Do I need to go talk to the school board? But there's some students in our schools locally at Title I schools extremely challenged that would really benefit from a 7-day adventure. And if cost is the obstacle or the impediment, I want to find a way to facilitate that.
Yeah, so you're spot on. The answer is cost. There's a cost component to
And
it.
is it
because
$1,700 for the 7-day trip?
$1,700 for the 6th night.
The 6th night.
Now, you can spread that out though, because I was very interested in your discussion, and one of you mentioned we want 100% of our Title I kids to have an opportunity to go out there with that exposure.
Absolutely.
That can start with a 1-day. It can grow to a 1-day over 5 different days.
How much is the 1 day, Admiral?
1 day is $99.
That should have happened yesterday. I'll fund it out of my own discretionary if necessary. But we have the Children's Trust, and that seems to be a core function. Has the school district, have they reached out to you? Because we do have schools that are challenged.
I've got a meeting with Dr. Leonard in 2 weeks. He's going to come out and we're going to walk through each of the different programs, and I'll lay out exactly what I laid out to you. One of the things I'd like to do, again, the only cost to Escambia County is busing for the 1-day field trip to go to our flight adventure deck. Escambia County underutilizes that.
Yeah,
so
well,
there's a great opportunity, and again, this is just the cost of buses.
I want all of the above, but I want the kids, the poorest kids in our district, since the taxpayers are paying for a Children's Trust, to have the ability for that 7-day trip. Because I've been to the I've been to the National Flight Academy, been there. It's a beautiful facility, a wonderful program, and I think the leadership that instills and the STEM knowledge would well serve a lot of these students who, frankly, that cost is a barrier. So we need to find a way to bridge that.
Yeah, one of the things we're doing differently this year is one of our last weeks in August is typically underrepresented because the school season starts. And so we've got 50 scholarships laid out for local children, and Escambia County will help us determine who those kids are to come on a day, so it's day only. So they don't spend the night, but they're there for 6 consecutive days, and they have the same curriculum program.
And I think that's fantastic and that's great. But for the ones who want it, I want them to have the ability. And so what percentage of local students actually take advantage of the 6th day and are able to get into it? It was a low percentage.
It is a low percentage, I think.
And look, I'm not assigning blame. I want to find a solution.
So we've got, through scholarships, 200, probably about 100 students, and then we've got 76 scholarships remaining. So
What percentage of the total? What's the throughput per year?
It's about 1,800 in the summertime. So again, that's a small percentage.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we can, at least we know what the baseline is now.
And Jeff, here's the challenge, and I'd like to know what titles, absolutely no blame, but I do recognize that I brought black aviators to town, and the first African American to ever go to the moon will be going here in 2024, and unfortunately there's a disproportionate amount of black and brown children who become aviators, and we're the cradle of Navy aviation. It's kind of almost like saying black kids can't swim when we live, with all this water surrounding us. So it's, to me, if I'm going to sit here and have this position, how do we expose them? It's great that they get the 1-day trip. I'll go all the way back with Honor Bell with Starbase Atlantis. I volunteered for Starbase Atlantis, and Peter Booth is my mentor. So I certainly recognize that. I go to Annapolis every day, and we still have less than not every day, but once every other year, I go to Annapolis to help recruit young African Americans to the academy through the Blue Glow officership. But we are the cradle, and if the impediment is money, and we're sitting on millions of dollars in a children's trust, it was for the children. And so I'm happy that there are children coming from across this country to go and become aviators or get exposed, and that's great. I applaud it. But my responsibility is to the children that are going in Title I schools in District 3 that doesn't have that exposure. And so I think that Jeff and our conversation was to be supportive and say, I want the kids out of Global, I want the kids out of Lincoln Park, Oakcrest, CAYs, Addis Court. If it's just one, what if we create another Chappie James? what an accolade for our community. And so I think we just want to help. I serve on the Children's Trust, but we as a county, I think we're just simply saying that we would be very supportive of you going. It's expensive. It costs. I don't think that it's free. I think that we've already paid for it through the Children's Trust. I would love to be supportive of you coming and looking and telling us what we need to do to support. And I'd love to know the actual outcomes of how many kids in Title I schools and how many minority kids are going to the 7-day class at their base, because children live here in this town, particularly poor black children. They never get to go on their base. They never get to go on their beach. They never get to go to their downtown. We have an opportunity to expose them. And so that's where my position is, and I want to be supportive, but I do have concerns.
I think we share the exact same position. And again, if you look at Starbase, Starbase was a place to start that. So get those, 100% of those Title I students out to the academy for 5 different days, and that changes lives. And so I look forward to looking for a solution where we can continue to expose. And the academic year is a great time to be able to do it. We can also do it over the summer, but a lot of different options there. I am a non-for-profit, but I'm also a not-for-loss. So I just have to cover those pieces.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, if money's the issue, I mean, I just don't want that to be the impediment or the excuse. I mean, what does it cost when we have to have a crime of a kid killing a kid? That's hundreds of thousands of dollars. I don't want a child to not have the opportunity to go on their base in their community, and we say that it's because of money. I mean, to me, that's just unacceptable. We figure out how to find the money.
Yes,
if
sir.
there's a child that's promising, that's working hard, that's doing everything that he's supposed to do, and he just needs a 7-day trip to the base, will change an inner city kid's life. And he may be intrigued to want to go and serve in one of our armed forces and our Naval Academy or West Point. And so we just want to give them that opportunity. And
I look forward to
that-
continuing to work with you all to come up with longer-term solutions.
Thank you.
Any other
Admiral, I
questions?
just want to thank you. For watching, picking up on the discussion and coming down and brief us. The colleagues had several good questions. I had one question I want you to clarify. You said Santa Rosa had 3,000 students. I think we said we're a little over
3,200,
700.
yeah.
What's the real difference? Why is that? I don't understand.
So traditionally, Santa Rosa has embraced the program more than Escambia County. And I think for Escambia County, it boils down to busing, because that's the only cost. Actually, so Escambia and Santa Rosa County each provide a teacher that's on site, so they help facilitate that program. But the only other cost to the county is, busing to get kids back and forth. We bear all the other costs of the program.
Okay, so maybe we need to work with our school board members?
Busing.
Okay. And also, since you're here, I want to thank you for the meeting the other day on the back base. I had some good, productive feedback. Obviously, you guys hosted it, and thanks so much. It was useful, and a lot of good feedback came out of it. I know we got a little work to go, but thank you, sir.
Thanks for your engagement.
Admiral, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And is the busing an issue? I mean, they're not.
That's my understanding. And so when, Dr. Smith was here, this will be my first opportunity to really have a conversation and walk through each of the programs with Keith Leonard. And so I can come back to you, with some sort of more formal answer. But that's everything that we've heard in the past is, it's a busing issue for Escambia County.
Well, that'd be very unfortunate, and I'll certainly talk to School Board Member Williams. That would be very disappointing. I mean, as much as you're giving, if they're not bringing transportation, but I tell you, I will bring it forward to this board that the school board will not provide transportation for these disadvantaged children. We have an ECAT system, and we will. I mean, I think that it's their responsibility, but if you're going to tell me that we're not going to take inner city children to their base, I mean, we'll figure that out if we got to, do it from our ECAT.
Wonderful. All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Our board, we do have one more public speaker, Kara Lavin.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm here to speak, I'm kind of trying to get my foot in the door about more opportunities for women coming out of Escambia County Jail. As of right now, of course, the Camp 5 is more of a rehabilitation for men, and I'm here to speak about maybe getting, or what your thoughts are for a Camp 5 for women. More opportunities for women to have trades as far as getting out and doing something other than what they're used to doing, getting in. As you know, they have, of course, they weld, they have the training for dogs. And as of right now, we are at the dog pound, and I was going to see if maybe we couldn't utilize some of those kennels to help rehabilitate some of these dogs in Red Zone and rehabilitate some of these women. I know that we really don't have the funding for it, but I was going to go to churches and maybe go to the streets about anything and everything we can get our hands on for more opportunities for women in Escambia County Jail.
Super.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I
Yep.
appreciate you guys.
Yep. Good idea. Board, that's all the speakers for public forum. If there's no opposition, I would just, do we need a break for a couple minutes or just adjourn and reconvene? Everybody good? Okay. All right, we're just going to adjourn and reconvene. Adjourn public forum, convene agenda. The Board of County Commissioners regular meeting April 22nd, 9:13 a.m. Please turn your cell phone to the vibrate silencer off setting. The Board of County Commissioners allows any person to speak regarding an item on the agenda. Speaker will be limited to 3 minutes unless otherwise determined by the chairperson to allow sufficient time for all speakers. Speakers, please refrain from abusive or profane remarks, disruptive outbursts, protest, or any other conduct which interferes with the orderly conduct of the meeting. Upon completion of the public comment period, discussion will be limited to board members and questions raised by the board. Invocation this morning, Commissioner Kohler.
Pastor Lowell, if you'll please come up. He's my pastor from Olive Baptist Warrington. If we'll please stand, he'll give us our invocation.
Super.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, county staff. I want to read a blessing to you from the book of Ruth. May the Lord reward you for what you have done, and may you receive a full reward from the Lord of God of Israel, under whose wing you have come for refuge. Let's pray together. Father God, I thank you so much for these ladies and gentlemen who have set themselves aside for public service, God. I pray that you would give them the wisdom of Solomon and the patience of Job, God, as they help Escambia County, God, govern, God, and provide a safe and a wonderful place for people to live and recreate and work. God, I pray for them, God. I pray, like I said, that you would give them wisdom. God, I pray that you would bring unity, God, to this group as they seek, God, to bring about the best for this county. God, I thank you for the joy of a beautiful day that you've given us. God, we thank you for your grace and your mercy. God, I pray today, God, that you would be glorified through the proceedings of this board and this commission. God, I thank you for Jesus, and I pray in his name today. Amen.
Amen. Commissioner May, will you lead us in the pledges?
Yes, sir. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Lumen. Any items to be added to the agenda? And Kristen Huell, Assistant County Attorney, is sitting with the board this morning. Any items to be added to the agenda, Kristen?
No, sir.
Thank you. Commissioner May?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Nothing from me.
Jeff? Mike?
I do have to add something. I need to add 1,000 to the Escambia County Sheriff's Foundation for the Blazer Society. I lost the donut eating on PVC pipe to Representative Salzman.
Okay. Is that good? Reflected into the dice? That's good? Okay. All right. I don't have anything, Mr. Administrator. All right, thank you. Entertain the motion to adopt the agenda as a...
So moved, Mr.
Second.
Chairman.
All right. Please vote. Item passes 4-0. And again, we will be voting by hand this morning. Commissioners Forum, Commissioner May?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do want to thank all those who participated in the fair housing this weekend. Human Relations and in our housing department, Tim, Claire, Joe Glover, Leroy, and all those. It was a great event. I want to thank our staff that's working hard on our summer youth program. Had an unprecedented amount of young people who applied, and you know, the great thing, I want to applaud the staff that, you know, we have 27 plus people who are young people who are now full-time employees of the county who started in our summer employment program, and we didn't have to spend money recruiting them or advertising them. They found us, they worked, they were vetted, and I do appreciate it. And to all of the departments that are giving young people a chance, I want to applaud those departments and encourage other departments that sometimes it's challenging to bring young people in because we feel like they get in the way. But we need to give them an opportunity. Training costs, opportunity costs, and so I encourage our directors and our administration to make sure that we're exposing many of these young people. As we've just talked to the Admiral, never get an opportunity to go outside of their environment. They will never get an opportunity to work in these different settings. And so to all of our not-for-profit partners and to our directors and to our constitutionals, we hope that you will open the door to accept more of our young people who are trying to get a job. And do want to thank Mr. McBride, Career Escarosa. They've been a partner for years, and unfortunately, state funding prohibited them from helping. So I want to thank my colleagues for thinking how important this program is for the children of Escambia County. And Jeff, it's one of the things I've said to staff, and it's unfortunate that our staff has not gone to Children's Trust, because that's an important program for those 18 and under. I mean, to give them a job and give them money. And
Absolutely.
so I see Director Hall, Wesley Hall, and I hope that Claire and those will be, bringing forth something to Children's Trust to make sure that we can increase children and not turn them around to extra funding. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Josh?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And first and foremost, I want to thank the gentlemen and ladies in attendance here, and in particular my fellow board members for moving this meeting for me. I had a very important conference in Sarasota last week that necessitated my attendance, so much appreciated that. I want to reach out and thank Sheriff Simmons. He had a great event in our district, in District 1 at the Five Flag Speedway. It was Cops, Cars, and Crawfish, and they allowed me to be a guest judge for the cars. And I tell you, I'm not a car guy, but there were some really amazing vehicles out there, and all for a good cause, all for the Sheriff's Foundation, and he's got a number of programs. You talk about youth development, the Blazer Academy, and the other programs that they're doing, just fantastic for the kids in our community. So congratulations to Whitney Lucas and Sheriff Simmons and all the men and women out there and all the people who brought cars. It was a great event, family-friendly, positive, very, very good. I also want to talk a little bit about the roundabout at Perdido Key. One of the things I did see when I was in Sarasota was roundabouts that work, right? Roundabouts that work, that are large, where the roads are centered on the middle of the roundabout, where you actually have to turn and make a turn. Unfortunately for me, I inherited a roundabout in District 1 that it's of a substandard size, and I'm getting a number of complaints about it. It's just not working. We've attempted minor tweaks. We've had a number of people just drive right through the middle of it because it's so small. We've applied rumble strips, but the rumble strips that were put in were extremely aggressive, so the folks don't like that. But I just wanted everyone to know that the entire staff is looking at that. They're going to bring a plan to enlarge it of an appropriate size and center the lanes, or demo it and put a traffic light there. But as it is constructed there right now, it's not working. It's backing up the traffic. People are angry, so I just want folks to know we're looking at that. We're going to find a solution, and we're going to implement the right solution. 2 weeks ago, we did have the ADC conference in Washington, D.C. There's a number of big issues, and I know that this sentiment has been echoed from the board, but 52% of our economy locally is generated from DOD expenditures in our community, not just in Pensacola, but in Santa Rosa County, throughout the Panhandle. And there are a number of really hot button issues that need to be on the front burner up there. So we had a very, very productive conversation with the Admiral, who runs every base in the world. He's in charge of every base in the world, and we had a very intimate meeting with him, and we talked about the need for a child development center at Whiting Field, the need for additional funding for the hangars, and particularly the one that's condemned at NAS Pensacola. And also we talked about traffic out the back gate, and we talked about ways to ameliorate that. That's a real problem. I mean, we love the Blue Angels. We certainly never want to move the practices off of the base. We want to keep them right there. We want to keep that mission here, but there's a number of things that have to happen. So appreciated the opportunity to go up there. I appreciate the participation by Todd Thompson, the chairman of the Chamber of Commerce, Debbie Panko, the executive director of Northwest Florida Defense Communities, Colton Wright, Commissioner Colton Wright from Santa Rosa County joined us as well, and it was very productive. So I appreciate that, and appreciate the rescheduling of this meeting. This week we're going to have a coffee with the commissioner live at Perdido Key. We're going to, I'm sure, talk about the roundabouts. We're going to talk about a lot of issues. Anything you all want to talk about with me, join us at 6:30 a.m. at the Visitor Center. right on Perdido Key Drive, and we can talk about all that things, 6:30 to 7:30. There's a couple exciting announcements that are going to be made about lifeguards at Perdido Key at our public beach access, and we've been working very hard. I appreciate the board's support for that, something that's desperately needed. Last year, sadly, we had 3 deaths from one family. They were visiting from out of town, and they did not, unfortunately, they did not realize the danger of these riptides, and when one got in trouble, another one went in, then that one got in trouble, the third one went in, they all drowned. So we're going to do everything we can, and I'm glad that 1 year later, removed from that, we're going to have lifeguards at Perdido Key. First time, and we're going to do it. So we're going to talk about that. I look forward to that discussion. Also, we're going to talk about the Lillian Boat Ramp, brand new 39-acre facility that's just about ready. I know they're having some issues with dewatering. It was supposed to be open by now, but it's been the culmination of a 6.5-year project, and very excited to bring that. And then finally, we're going to talk about a new Station 20. There's been a 5-year effort to get property from the Navy on Bower Road to replace Station 20. My understanding is we have that paperwork now, so pay attention and stay tuned for a very exciting announcement. For all those residents in Paradise Beach that have been without fire service coverage, it's coming. And I appreciate everyone's work on that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yep. Commissioner Coleman?
Actually, just on what Jeff said, I actually helped facilitate that land transfer for them. It's not in my district, but I'm proud to do that and help. And one clarification, Jeff, that Admiral Gray's only over the Navy installations, not all the bases.
Well, all the Navy bases.
But yeah, but I think you said the whole world.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
I gave him a promotion, Mike.
Yeah, I know. All right. Last time we were here, we were notified that there was a fire out off Gulf Beach Highway. And as you know, it was a pretty extensive fire. Next day, I went out and did a site visit out there, and I can't express how much our fire department saved those houses off Mary Ellis. If you went out there and saw it, the vinyl on the backside of several of the houses had been burnt down. You would not have believed that they could have survived. There were multiple parties. We were going to do a proclamation today, but we'll move that forward till we can get everyone here. But after talking to the Forest Service, it takes them about 50 minutes to get down there. They stayed there for 2 days. NAS Fire Department out there. There were multiple trucks out there. I don't want to miss anyone, but awesome job on saving personal property. You can't express it. That's what the county does for you in tough times, and that was an unbelievable job. I'm going to go through a few things. One thing, on Monday, the governor came to our district. It's always good when the governor comes to, District 2. That had to do a little bit about the Triumph money. I wrote a letter for Dr. Ruiz for that, and I never thought they were going to get $7 million. But what's more important than that is what that school's having help, but what's happening outside of that school, this board has helped change. And Dr. Ruiz actually pulled me aside after the governor had left. Some of the things that we've done around Old Coreyfield Road, Lexington Terrace Park, the blight on Navy, that's all because the board had voted for that. And it's those small changes that are starting to take that failing school, and hopefully they'll have some success. So I just want you to know the governor notices that, Charter USA knows that, and we'll see where they end up. April's Military Child Month. If you have kids that were ever in the military, like my kids, they had to leave. We had to go to DC. I had to go down to Gitmo. They were born in Oakland and Guam and all over the place. But these kids are displaced. They go through different challenges, and it's just important to recognize them this month. All right, I got some staff shout-outs. On Tuesday, we did the neighborhood CRA at Warrington. As you know, Neighborhood Services, Everett, and Max. Max is kind of the lead on this. Sherry. We had about 40 people, maybe even more, I don't know, but Lexington Terrace was completely packed with people writing comments on the wall, what they wanted out of their community, how to revitalize around the base. Very, very productive meeting. We have one more on May 28th, and I can't applaud Neighborhood Services for the work they did. The very next night, we had a meeting out at Perdido Estates, and this is where your county government is doing their job again. That neighborhood is flooded for 20 years. I came in and I asked legal, the county administrator, engineering to come up with a plan. They did. It's not the best plan when you have to put an MSBU together, but it's a plan where these folks can have some sort of, if they accept the MSBU, flood protection. And I appreciate what engineering, Stefan, your shop coming out in finance, Public Works, Jamie was there. It was a tough talk, but I think when we left there, people felt happy that we had the conversation and that the county came up with some sort of solution. So we'll see if we get there. On yesterday, I got to thank Keep Pensacola Beautiful. They went out around Wesco. We cleaned up 10 blocks around Myrtle Grove. Charles Bear was there, and I can't thank him enough for that. It was a good day. And then this weekend, if you don't know, I went to TDC, I guess, was it Monday or Tuesday? And Good Hope Cemetery has been blighted. The church can't maintain it. Homeless have taken it over. When I brought this up last time, we had a cry out to the office. The news covered it. We're probably going to have 50 to 100 people show up behind Kesco on Saturday. Multiple military units, Olive Baptist Warrington Church. We're going to have Good Hope Church, several black leaders, Ellison Bennett, Marcel Davis, and we're going to start working on making that a better site for people that have been neglected for some time, and it's the right thing to do. And the last thing I want to say, I know a few of you will know this person. Neil Davis is a retired Navy captain. He was in the Navy for, I think, 35 years, 13 pay grades. He's being buried today out at Barrancas. His wife was the chairman of the Republican Party for many years. He was engaged in that, and I'm thinking about you, both Dorothy and everyone there today at Barrancas. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner. I want to, the TDC board meeting that you mentioned last week, Mike, and obviously I think Jeff was there as well, but the funding for the Bay Center was a big deal that made it through there, that $10 million from existing funds. Obviously, that's a component of the improvements that we're hoping to do at the Bay Center, which is also going to be paired with with a large debt placement, utilizing the TDC, the bed tax revenue that we create, already. That those improvements at the Bay Center will be paired with that multi-use facility at Ashland Brosnan, and the consultant's wrapping up the feasibility and cost analysis, all of those things. I believe they're going to be intending to make a presentation to the board at the beginning of June. That's the hope there. A couple of things I want to shout out to Mike Rhodes and Parks and Rec. They had a very successful couple of weeks. The Saturday after our last board meeting, Ashland Brosnan, where we've hosted the SEC Women's Tournament the last couple of seasons, hosted a round robin with Mississippi State, LSU, and University of Florida coming up and playing 3 soccer matches on Saturday afternoon on the 6th of April. And it was paired with the Texans having, I don't know if it was a big tournament or just games or whatever, but there were thousands of people out at Ashland Brosnan on that Saturday when it took kids out there to watch some college soccer. So it was packed with people, even without the round robin SEC tournament. But the field looked great. Talking to some of the conference leadership as well as some of the team coaches, they all seemed very, very positive and pleased with, again, the state of the field, the state of the park, as well as the reception that they received from Escambia County citizens. Again, they stayed at the beach and enjoyed that while they were partaking in their soccer matches. And then one thing that's on the agenda today, but may not get a lot of discussion at the time, is going to be the culmination of a long process back and forth with International Paper about leasing the property where they operated a golf course in Cantonment at Muskogee Road for the golf course operated for many years. And we're, things working with publicly traded companies are, often a little bit slower than, government things are slow, and then those companies are probably even slower. So we, nearly ticked off 3 years of back and forth to get an agreement in place. But, I want to thank the current mill manager, Hunter Morris, as well as the former mill manager, Scott Taylor. It was really, this lease really was the product of conversations that he and I started having in the summer of 2021, trying to come out of COVID and find something that would really be a good partnership. The golf course wasn't being operated at that time for a couple of years, so they were looking for a use, and we were looking for an amenity for our constituents. So also want to thank Whitney Fike, and then Mike Rhodes and Adam Reed and all of the folks in Parks and Rec, as well as, I know she's not here today, but Allison Rogers spent a lot of time working with the IP's general counsel going back and forth between Memphis and New York to get an agreement to the point that we're ready to have it on the board meeting today. So that's very exciting.
Steve,
Yes.
so, because, I have dear friends like Joe Mack up there. What are you
Yeah.
doing what are you doing at that golf course?
So what we're looking to do is, part of this, I want to thank Stephen Hall for, kind of figuring out the funds part of it. So it's going to be a lease rather than an acquisition of the property. So we're limited. We're, local option sales tax money on the property is not necessarily an option. So the brick and mortar things are somewhat limited again because, we don't own the property, but we are going to have a pavilion as well as a nice playground, and then a walking track, large walking track around all the property, and an 18-hole disc golf course, and all of I don't know the layout of all the amenities. I think the pavilion will be on the western side of the property, close to where there used to be there was a clubhouse at one time on the western side of the golf course. I don't know exactly. I would think the playground would be somewhere in that vicinity, and then the disc golf may mirror the current golf course to some degree, on utilizing some of the layout of the holes. And then I would assume
It'll be a public golf course.
a public disc golf course, yeah. And then a large public walking track. I think that's going to allow for, I don't know, mile and a half or so of walking track out there, something like that, maybe 2 miles. It's pretty lengthy. So it's very exciting.
Well, I think that the Cantonment Neighborhood Association is pretty excited. I've talked to a few of them because they're my friends, and all those kids off Well Line and at Cantonment Ballpark, they don't have a lot, so.
Yeah,
my
it's
full support.
exciting. I was with some folks at Carver Park on Friday afternoon, and yeah, they did seem excited. I rode right by Joe's house, but yeah, I think they're excited. They're also very excited about about finally moving forward with their facility on the footprint of Carver Park. That's very exciting. There's sometimes, and I know we deal with this over the years as we work with nonprofits. There's often people that will tell them, well, I'll do this for you and I'll do that for you. Yeah, sometimes those things don't. Sometimes those other partners don't really, it doesn't really work out the way. Even if it's as well intended as it could be, it doesn't really work out. It's people will tell you, well, just go get $100,000 from here and $100,000 from there, and that's sometimes more challenging than it sounds like when somebody else is telling you go get somebody else's money. So, I think the group is excited to be moving forward with a great amenity. Another driving through there right now, the area looks great, and you start thinking about another $1 million to $1.5 million of public facility on the property. It's going to be a great thing. They can do a lot in 3,200 plus square feet in there to benefit that community.
Yeah, and Steve, when we don't get a chance to talk, we have so much bad news. It's good to have good news every now and then.
There's quite a bit. Quite a bit of good news. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if it negates the bad news that we get daily, but there's so many inner city urban kids, coming down from Century in that area, and their lack of exposure to golf, their lack of exposure to tennis, and to those things. The track teams that they're doing now. For a lot of kids, and they're doing it over at Washington High School, a good track for kids coming out of that area gives them a different opportunity other than just football or baseball. So any support that I can give to you on this board to make that available to those kids. I know you have a lot of low-income areas, and particularly from Century, those kids just don't have a lot to do. It's not a lot of them, and what I was talking to a group about, Steve, is y'all probably going to have to make your way down closer to Cantonment because, you don't have the population to do the programs. We tried to do some programs through Children's Trust, but they just couldn't generate the amount of kids. But if we can get something closer to them, rather than them having to come down to a tennis court, in Escambia County at Oakcrest, or a track or a golf. Some of those kids have never been on a golf. They don't even know what a golf club is. Neither do I. But still, at least you can expose it to them.
Yeah, and it's cutting that commute at least in half. If they're coming to Cantonment rather than making their way all the way to town. And I did talk to some folks that are coaching up at Century this spring for rec baseball.
Yeah,
it's a banner year. They've got 13, 14 teams for the first time in more than a decade. The participation is up a lot at that rec park, so that was good to hear.
Right.
It's created a little bit of problems for them that with space and some of that stuff, but it's just having that participation again is good. So they certainly need they certainly need as much good news as we need, so.
Absolutely. And it's funny that you say the baseball, and I know Mike does a great job, and we're partnering with the city over at Raymond Riddle, but it's challenging, particularly in the inner cities for baseball. It's become so expensive, lack of volunteers, the cost of bats. I mean, it's a big challenge. So it's not just a crisis in Escambia County, it's a crisis across this country, getting urban kids to play baseball. I mean, they've almost abandoned it, and people say, well, they're just not interested. Well, it's challenging.
Right.
Every practice you lose 5 balls, and the ball costs $10 a ball. You got to have a $500 bat. We just, particularly in District 3, I'm a little disappointed in the lack of baseball that's happening for inner city children. And so hopefully, we can do something to help that. I know you're doing a much better job in the North End with the disadvantaged baseball than we're doing here in Escambia.
I tell you, one of the issues that, one of the issues that Century has that we've been able to help with, one of the things we took off the associations, 11 or 12 years ago was the maintenance of the parks themselves, mowing and, keeping it up and those kind of things. Within the town limits, they don't necessarily have that. They're still, the town of Century isn't necessarily capable of taking those responsibilities off of the rec association. So, they're having some of those problems that we were having 10 or 12 years ago with fees being very high for participation, and that's a challenge. So
And
that may
Steve,
be something we have to look at next year.
I think, Steve, and that's a good point. I don't know what the number is. Michael Rose would know it. When we first got elected, I know we implemented to taking care of those parks that was on the backs of Bellevue, Myrtle Grove, Inslee, all those parks.
Right.
And that we absorb that cost so we can make sure that no child's left behind and every child gets an opportunity to play. So
Right.
that was a pretty heavy lift, but now that we've done it for so many years, it kind of becomes standard operations. But that's why, it's important to me that no child is denied an opportunity to play because of funds. I mean, because at the end of the day, we are taking on, the maintenance of the field.
It's very important. Absolutely, Commissioner. All right, Board, Mr. Administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to ask Andy Gibson if she could come forward. Andy's one of our professional young ladies that work in our CMR division, department. Andy has just received the 2024 Communicator of the Year Award from the Pensacola chapter of the Florida Public Relations Association on April 18th, 2024. The criteria was the Communicator of the Year Award is given to a public relations professional and/or agency who demonstrates outstanding skills in any of the following categories: communications for nonprofit or government organization, communications for a for-profit organization, or crisis communications. Andy is a diligent, hardworking communicator for Escambia County. As the county's public information officer, she works daily with local and national media members to provide pertinent information to residents and visitors. Additionally, she works with county departments to share their message with the community, including information about county services, upcoming events, and things that are important to county-related news. Andy's dedication to her career is reflected by how she communicates with our media partners. Our media partners play a vital role in how our citizens are informed by their local government. She understands the importance of effectively and accurately communicating this information to our media partners and maintains a positive and collaborative relationship with all of our media. I love working with Andy. I know she has supported a lot of y'all's events through the years here in the rest of the CMR department. Andy, congratulations on the award. You do a fantastic job for us. Thank you so much.
Yeah, congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you to the Pensacola chapter of Florida Public Relations Association for selecting me for this award. I want to thank Davis Wood, my counterpart and other PIO, for nominating me. You don't have to be a member of our chapter to win this award. There are tons of wonderful other PR and communications professionals in Pensacola, so to be selected for this award is a huge honor. So thank you very much, and thank you, Davis.
Yeah. Congratulations again.
Mr. Chairman, Andy, I want to publicly thank you. I mean, because most of our work is done on weekends and at nights and town halls and gatherings. You never rush. You're always there, and you just treat the citizens with so much care. I mean, Steve, you talk about a good public servant. We always talk about it. Andy. You are the rising star, and I appreciate what you do in my district.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I'll see you at Rosamond Johnson Beach Day on Saturday, May 4th.
We'll be there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Mr. Administrator, anything else? Our board will move into the agenda. Entertain a motion to adopt the proclamations.
Second.
Thank you. Please vote. Item passes 4-0. Eric Gilmore, if you might make your way forward. This is going to be adopting the proclamation declaring the week of April 12th through April 20th as National Public Safety Telecommunications Week in Escambia County in honor of the men and women whose diligence and professionalism keeps our county safe. Eric, you've got the floor.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, Commissioners. As they make their way up to the front, I want to talk a little bit about these fine men and women who do our 911 or communications. Are the unseen heroes of our first responders. And not only are they great communicators with the public in a crisis, they're also psychologists, they're also social workers. They do it all. So when they take that 911 call, there's no telling what hat they have to put on to meet the need of the citizen that's calling them. So we did have Telecommunications Week was last week, but we do want to give the proclamation for them. And whereas public safety telecommunicators are the first and most critical contact citizens have with our emergency services, these dedicated men and women are first responders and are more than anonymous voices on a telephone line. They are public safety telecommunication professionals who quickly respond to over 216,000 emergency calls every year in Escambia County. And emergency responders rely on their knowledge and professionalism to make critical decisions, obtain information, and quickly dispatch needed aid. Public safety telecommunicators are the single vital link to our law enforcement, firefighters, emergency services by monitoring their activities by radio, providing them information, and ensuring their safety. Public safety telecommunicators have saved countless lives by providing step-by-step instructions to render aid prior to first responders arriving on scene. The work of these unseen first responders is invaluable in emergency situations, and each of these dedicated men and women deserve our heartfelt appreciation. Citizens place their trust in these individuals, not just this week, but every day of the year, and every emergency dispatcher, 911 call taker, and radio and telephone technician exhibit compassion, understanding, and professionalism during the performance of their job while assisting those in need. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the Board of County Commissioners hereby declare the week of April 14th through April 20th, 2024 National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week in honor of the men and women whose diligence and professionalism keep our county safe 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Board of County Commissioners, Stephen Berry, Chair, Jeff Bergosh, District 1, Michael Kohler, District 2, and Luma May, District 3. Thank you all very much for what you do. So.
I just want to say thank you for everybody at Communications. People don't understand what all they go through. Shanae, how many years you have? How many you have? Shanae has 20 years there. Robin has 19. Shanae is second generation 911 dispatcher. It's a lot to go through, a lot of time away from families, a lot of stress. So I just want to appreciate everything, appreciate y'all and appreciate them with what they do. Thank y'all.
Thank you. Yep.
And sirs, just real quick, I want to introduce Morgan Pope. She's one of our EMTs with Escambia County EMS. She lives in Okaloosa County. And we want to kind of recognize her and just put her in the spotlight here, just a real quick minute if you indulge me. She lives in Okaloosa County, and while she was off duty, she unfortunately had to respond to her next door neighbor, a 2-year-old child, was face down in the pool for 5 minutes downtime. So the neighbor came knowing that Morgan was one of our EMTs, ran next door, grabbed Morgan, come help out with the child. Morgan did start a CPR before anybody got there and got ROSC, what we call ROSC, return of circulation to the 2-year-old child. While the child she gave the child every bit of opportunity to revive itself and for responders to get there. Unfortunately, the child did pass, but she did the initial response, got the initial ROSC. Okaloosa County is going to kind of do an appreciation for her, but being our employee, I'm proud of what she does off duty and using her skill set. We do want to recognize her too, and say thank you, Morgan, for what you do on and off duty and the level of professionalism you exhibited. So while the outcome wasn't what we wanted, she did give that child every chance to fight while the responders got there. So thank you for allowing me to take this time to commend Morgan Pope in front of the board. So.
Mr. Chairman,
Yep.
Eric, This weekend at the Fair Housing, there was a young lady whose blood pressure went up, fainted, fell out, and I want to just thank the fire department and your EMS guys for quickly responding. We got her to the hospital, and probably had they not been there set up, it would have, probably been way worse than it really was. So I do want to thank your guys and thank your team for being there and responding. Deputy Fire Chief was there, and a lot of your other teams, your EMS guys were there, and they did a great job in responding and with extra special care for the lady. And she ended up at Baptist, but she's better now. So thank you for
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the acknowledgement. Thank you.
Eric, stay there just a second, Mr. Chairman. Morgan, thank you so much. I just have a question. When we have a staff member that is with a patient when they die like that, is there some sort of after hot wash or conversation for their own mental health?
So we do, it's going to be up to the responder how they process it and everything, but we do offer our peer support team. So even with our on-duty personnel, when they run across a bad situation, the peer support team's activated for them to go talk. Now, it's there for them. If they want it, great. If they don't want it, it's up to them. It's how they process their grievance and how they're processing the scene in their mind. But we do activate the peer support team, and even though she was off duty, it impacts her. And peer support team was activated for her. She did take advantage of it. And then we, if anybody needs anything further past that, then we offer that up in the county as well. But yes, we do. Yes, sir.
No, that's awesome. I just want to make sure we had support system burnout among health
We have to.
providers.
Burnout is big. But yes,
So,
sir.
thank
Absolutely.
you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, one last thing. He walked in the former mayor and former county commissioner, District 4, former mayor Grover Robinson, commissioner. I thought he was coming to take that seat this morning, is why I thought he was here.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
But he still sat down there, so I thought he was coming up. So the seat's open, Grover.
Yeah, I certainly want to recognize our colleague, a three-term commissioner from District 4, as well as mayor, and a six-year colleague of a number of us on the dais. So.
Yeah. And rumors that he's going to take that seat back. So
Yeah.
congratulations, Grover.
Let the rumors start here. Did the clerk's office receive proof of publication?
Mr. Chairman, the clerk's office.
I apologize. Item B, which was the second proclamation, we're going to drop. We're going to drop this morning. A motion to drop that. All right. Please vote. Item passes 4-0. I apologize. Did the clerk's office receive proof of publication?
Mr. Chairman, the clerk's office has received all proofs.
All right. Entertain a motion to waive the reading.
Second.
All right. Please vote. Item passes 4-0. 901 public hearing concerning proposed grant application for the 5339 funding. All right, board, we do have two public speakers. The first one's Larry Downs.
Larry Downs Jr. Plumbing, LLC, because fecal matters. All right, this is some of that free grant money, the free grant ferry. This is just amazing that y'all are going to keep. I mean, I get it. You can hardly keep from just grabbing free money. It's hard to do. It's hard to do, even if it goes to our own demise. We got to get it. Look at this. $14.1 million, $2.9 million this is one of them, for 9 35-foot electric buses. Not to mention the charging stations, $2.4 million, training. This is just amazing. I mean, I'm sitting here going, I wonder if they know that we're destroying the planet, trying to save the planet. It's amazing. What kind of stress is this going to put on our grid? This is on our roads. How heavy are these buses? I mean, they must have giant freaking batteries that require what? Hold on. I got it screenshotted here because I just happened to share one of these last night. To manufacture one Tesla battery for a little old bitty car, 12 tons of rock for lithium. That's what's got to be moved. 5 tons of cobalt minerals. This is just mind-blowing. 3 tons of nickel ore. 12 tons of copper ore. You must move 250 tons of soil to obtain 26.5 pounds of lithium, 30 pounds of nickel, 48.5 pounds of magnesium, 15 pounds of cobalt. Are we kidding ourselves here? I mean, are y'all just going to go along with this? Are y'all just going to keep getting the free money like the COVID money? Just, oh, it's coming. I got to do it. Stop doing it. You can always say no. It's just like drugs. Just say no, especially pharmaceuticals. Just say no.
All right. The next speaker is Glenn Conrad.
Good morning, Commissioners. Morning. I'd like to bring that topic of the a little bit north of $56 million grant. Of course, it's a grant that you're getting from the federal government, so you're going to approve it, have no doubt. But my issue is on a planning and priorities. Okay, so for $56 million, the way I read the items on the agenda, you're going to buy some capital. You're going to buy some electric buses. No mention of return on investment, no mention of long-term maintenance, no mention of what it's going to cost us in future normal budgets when the grant is gone, that you're going to have to take money away to replace batteries, to do maintenance on the motors, to do more road damage because Mr. Downs is correct, they're very heavy. So this long-term cost is what else is going to suffer? I mean, we have plenty of road problems, storm drainage problems, environmental problems, schools, homeless, plenty of things that are in our budget already that we can't pay for. So now you're going to take this money, buy capital plant with, as I can read it, no plan to maintain it long term. Are the current buses full? Are they obsolete? Do we have the space? Are you going to incur more staff to do maintenance on electric buses that you then have to pay retirements for? Those are things that are missing here. So before this is approved, I'd like to see those kinds of issues addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Board, that's all the public speakers. Any comments? Any comments or questions
I
for
just
staff?
have a question, since that is a good comment. Kimbo, do we have a maintenance plan for this? Do you mind talking about it? Because I like grant money, but I don't want after the grant money have to pay for it out of the county.
Board and concerned citizens, when it comes to these competitive grants, 5339 grants, those are not grant dollars that's actually guaranteed for us. In the past, Escambia County Area Transit over, I want to say about 2 decades or maybe even more, have not even took the time to even apply for these competitive grants. And the plan for the Federal Transit Administration is actually what they are planning for us all to go to the electric vehicles. And so guess what? There's electric vehicles all throughout the state right now, and there are none here in Escambia County. So we are actually currently behind the power curve. But with those 5339 grant through FTA and through the state funding, every one of those grants that you apply for, there actually is a training plan. Part of those dollars actually go to the maintenance training and the maintenance training costs. There are programs right now, currently that's being created for right now in Palmtran. Palmtran will actually be having an electric maintenance consortium that's actually being developed right now. And guess what? We're never invited because we don't have a seat at the table because we have not actually grew our actual service. So I want to say to any of the citizens that if anyone ever have just a question in regards to electric vehicles, just transit in within itself, please just reach out to me because we are behind the power curve. We're known as the prehistoric transit agency in the state of Florida, and there's a reason why our ridership is kind of, well, I'm not going to say low because we had over 900,000 riders last year, but the reason why we aren't where we are or where we should be is simply because we haven't got out ahead of this stuff. And again, I want to see us have not only just an efficient transit system, but I would like us to see us compete in the state, across the nation, and be one of the better transit agencies. And we got a long way to go, and I need the support of all of you guys.
Rodriguez, just for clarification, you're simply requesting a public hearing to put a grant application with no guarantee that you'll receive the grant.
No, we put this in last year, and again, we didn't even make it to it sucks, but again, we put the grant application in last year. We didn't even get it. No one even sniffed us out. But I think this year, being that you guys did help us get the new bus facility through non-transit dollars, again, I think we have a good chance to be competitive, and this is something that we actually need. So no, it's just you guys allowing us to actually just put it in. We're not receiving any funding, but I do hope that we receive the funding because it's a need.
Well, thank you for going after dollars that are not on the backs of the local taxpayers and not just sitting there going along to get along. At least you're applying for them, whether we get them or not. So at least you're putting some effort into it.
Yes, sir. Well, I've always been a winner, and I would like our agency to be a winner. So that's just my goal.
Hey, Kimball, I appreciate what you're doing. I know you're committed to the cause, and so I'll be supporting it.
Yes, sir. I definitely appreciate you all and the whole entire board and the citizens.
If you really want to win, you stop coaching at PHS and at Pine Forest and come to PHS.
Some of his friends are at PHS now.
Oh, yeah.
Some of his friends are at PHS.
He can
Maybe
leave
we'll
Pine
do that.
Forest now, yeah.
All right, board, I'd entertain a motion for the 901 public hearing to be through, for A through E.
Mr. Chairman, I move the item A through E.
Thank you. Please vote. Item passes 4-0. 902 public hearing. Board, we do have a couple of speakers. Larry Downs Jr.
Larry Downs Jr. Plumbing LLC, because fecal matters. All right, this is we know what this is. This is another one, the same thing. And I get it, I understand. This is just for y'all to move forward, for them to move forward with the grant process. And the grant process moving forward costs us money too. People don't work for nothing. So what are the unintended long-term adverse reactions going to be going with this new global agenda, this WIF, World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, Bill Gates, idiocy? I mean, we know what it is. Y'all are part of it right now. Whether you like to admit it or not, you're part of it. That we shouldn't be jumping on every bandwagon that the federal government and the World Economic Forum and Davos and the United Nations jumps on. That's where we're having some problems. Y'all can see that. It's clear. Just like the COVID vaccines, it's clear we're having some problems, the long-term adverse reactions to free federal money. And it is. I mean, it's not free. Y'all know that. I'm being facetious here. It's costing us. It's costing our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren. Every time y'all vote, every time that you vote for more of this unlimited government overreach, you're destroying our country, even right here locally. Thank you. MissionObvious.com.
Thank you. Next speaker is Glenn Conrad.
So, Mr. Chairman, I hope I'm addressing the Place Landing.
No, it's the same. It's 902. It's another grant application.
Oh, well, I talked to both of them before.
Okay. All right,
I do
super.
have another chit in with you for the Place Landing topic.
Okay.
Thank you.
I got it. Thank you. All right, board. I'd entertain a motion for A through E A through E again on the 902.
So moved.
Thank you. Second. Is there a second? Thank you, Mike. All those in favor, please vote. Item passes 4-0. 903 public hearing. We don't have any speakers. I'd entertain a motion.
Second.
All right. Please vote. 903 public hearing passes 4-0. Madam Clerk.
Thank you. I have two items on the consent agenda. The first one are the returns that we received in March for the February stays at our hotels and et cetera. The stays decreased by 6%. You can see the backup documents in your package. I'd also like to comment on the TDC meeting. I believe Chairman Bear is still on the misconception that the clerk received more than 3% over the last 10, 12 years. any particular year. I can't figure out what he's talking about. But he continues to say that the clerk has received more than 3%, more than the statutes. I would like to ask Stephen Hall to provide some history of the county budgeting. There was a budgeting plan several years where the county budgeted 5%. That did not go to the clerk. The clerk has never received more than 3%. I've explained this to Chairman Bear 2 or 3 years ago. I think it's going to take, Wes, someone in your staff to explain the history to him. It also came out in the audit that the clerk did not receive more than 3%. So maybe you can provide clarity of what's being said at the dais by the chairman, because it's incorrect. Thank you.
All right. Entertain a motion for the clerk's
I'm
report.
not finished. Thank you, sir. Number 2 is minutes and reports prepared by the clerk. I'd also like to give a thank you to Kristen Hewell, who stepped in last week. We worked with Mission Square to get the notice out to have the monies for the 401A returned to the county treasury.
Thank you. Entertain a motion for the clerk's report.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Please vote. Item passes 4-0. Horace, Growth Management.
Good morning, Commissioners. GMR today, we have 4 action items, 4 final plats. Item number 1 is Pless Landing.
All right, thank you. Board, we do have a couple of speakers. Do y'all want to hear from them? First is Meredith Bush.
Good morning, Board. Meredith Bush, 125 East Intendencia. I'm here on behalf of clients who live in the Navy Point neighborhood, and we would be asking that you table the Pless Landing plat for this morning. Navy Point has a system of alleyways that are dedicated, accepted, and maintained as public right-of-way, and we would like to ensure that those alleyways remain open and accessible as the right-of-way. We would be asking the county to verify that the survey that goes along with the plat is accurate and that the 15-foot alleyways remain open and free for access by vehicle and foot travel. The alleyways form the adjacent boundary of the plat on its northwest and partially southern border. There should be adequate buffering between the plat and the alleyways, which is not provided in the plat. Additionally, if you look at what's actually on the ground, the stubbed out portion of Jardine Road, which is not within the plat, has been extensively dug up and rebuilt to include a curb and gutter system. We provided to the county photographs of a stop sign and fire hydrant and storm drain, which are encroaching within the alleyways. There's a question as to whether the intent is that Leroy Polson Lane, a new road, will substitute for the alley as it goes north and turns east, before the alley then continues northeast and Leroy Polson continues east. We're basically asking that the county provide on the record assurances that the alleys adjacent to Pless Landing will remain open as a 15-foot public right-of-way per the Navy Point plat and decades of use. Clark Partington again does represent owners within Navy Point and are, we stand ready to take any appropriate legal action if this is not addressed prior to acceptance of the plat. Happy to take any questions.
All right. You're here as representing the residents, not the developer, correct?
Correct, not the
Thank you,
developer.
Meredith. Next speaker is Melissa Pino.
Thank you, Chairman Barry. I haven't been down here in a long time, and it's really great to see everybody, but I'm really disappointed that I have to be down here again with legal to try to maintain these ROWs. I have never fought this development. I mean, both Horace, Drew, and Adore are really well aware that I've never done a single thing to fight this development, whether I like it or not, because there's nothing to fight. Everything that they're doing is perfectly legal per the Land Development Code. But what we do have is a 2-year, 4-month paper trail going back and forth with the planning department, both myself and Clark Partington. I'm really grateful for Meredith being here today. Will Dunaway has been taking the lead on this, but he's out of town today. Will has family members in Navy Point that are impacted right now over this thing that developers and owners are starting to argue that the alleyways in Navy Point have migrated. No, they haven't. So, in my opinion, I'm not saying that this is my lawyer's opinion, their survey is incorrect, just as the survey is incorrect on Grieve Court, Commissioner Kohler. And right now, the Code Department is waiting for documents from legal, as I understand it, to take that owner to, in front of the magistrate to get him to move his fence back from the alley. So we have clearly provided pictures, and the unfortunate place this is putting residents, and it will put the county, is that, as I understand it, the developer's argument is that because the owners built their fences too far into the alley, that if we want to maintain our 15-foot right-of-way in places, the county is going to have to make those owners pull up fences that in some cases have been there since the 1950s. So at the very beginning, when I was talking to the acquisitions person, super nice guy from Adore, I begged Adore to partner with the county and combine that ROW and make it a big promenade that goes into U, publicly accessible to everybody. And I am grateful to Adore that they're keeping those roadways public and maintaining the connectivity of the neighborhood. But I said, make a big promenade around it, return the road to its previous glory, have greenery, you could even do your garages in the back. But instead, they plopped a county paved ROW right next to a county ROW alley. No buffer in between, and in some places, because of this strange survey, it's very difficult to even drive your car. And I appreciate Mr. Marino has been, very patient with all of my photos of this. We've been driving this alley for 2 years and sending in photos of this encroachment to multiple divisions of the county and to Mr. Marino, so thank you. I really hope. The other thing is the MSBU just crept onto the agenda, a stormwater MSBU. All of this agenda stuff just came, the description a few days ago. There's no documentation of who exactly is paying for this MSBU, current owners, future owners. I hope to goodness that the argument is not going to be made that those 2 stormwater ponds are benefiting all of Navy Point, because they are just for the development. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Glenn Conrad.
Commissioners, thank you. I'm happy to report that this is probably one of the very few things that Melissa Pino and I agree on. Developments should be self-sustaining. So when I read what you've written in the agenda here, it's the county is going to accept all public easements for permanent county maintenance. Now there's a caveat for the stormwater pond there until the Northwest Florida Water Management District approves it for maintenance. But basically the key words here are permanent county maintenance, which means the county is going to pay for maintenance on this private development infrastructure. Then later on in the paragraph, it says this will be funded. This is good that you put in here at least a funding mechanism, but it'll be funded through a municipal services business unit, MSBU. There's no mention of MSBU applies to what geographical area? Is it just this development? Is it all of Navy Point? Is it Warrington? Is it Escambia County writ large? Those things are important, and you will get some pushback on that because I'm not voting for an MSBU. In my neighborhood, the development, if it wants to be self-sustaining, if it's a profitable development for the developer, they should build these costs in up front. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Board. That's all the public speakers. Drew.
Yes, sir. So there's 4 items on the plat, A through D.
Thank you. Board, any questions for Drew?
I do have a couple questions, because this property, I want to talk a little bit about what they said on the right-of-way in that property. They said it wasn't 15 feet. Is that true or not true, Drew?
So it shows up on the final plat, the alleyway / right-of-way, because it's listed as both, and that's from the original Navy Point plat.
Okay, and actually, I want to address something that Mel Pino brought up. She did have a good point, but on the Grieve Court, the citizen that lives in Navy Point, we do have some problems there. That individual had got 2 surveys, and then Developmental Services gave him a permit. That just doesn't seem right. We're working with Natural Resources and Code to try to figure out what's right, but if someone goes through the normal process and their surveys say they could put up a fence, and then we come back and say, no, they can't, it's just not right. It's just not right to do that to people. So we got to figure out what we're doing in these alleyways in Navy Point, because I agree, it's breaking up the community and there's problems. So I walked this with you, Glenn, a long time ago. You know, we walked this landing, we looked at stormwater drainage when it first came up. I don't want to affect and I do agree with what they said, the MSBU, this is more for Stefan. Stefan, is it only for Plus Landing? That needs to be added, you know, that MSBU has to be defined only for Plus Landing.
I can speak to that point.
Okay.
When an MSBU is established, you have to define the boundaries, and only those properties that benefit from the whatever facilities are being provided through the MSBU, only those properties would be assessed.
Okay, I figured that, but I want.
Any property that would benefit from the stormwater improvements, correct? I would imagine not.
Well, that needs to be clarified. So, you know, I agree with that, with the citizens. That no one that lives in Navy Point for the last 30, 40 years should be put into an MSBU. So you want to comment, Joy?
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. Just for hopefully to clarify, the MSBU language is something you adopted many years ago at this board relative to the new development only. It is to cover the cost of maintenance for the new ponds that are built in the development and maintained by the county. It does not apply to any other existing homes or development in the area, only to this plat.
All right, thank you.
It exists on all of your public maintained plats.
Joy, so what's the contention? We just heard from the citizens. I mean, what's the contention about this development?
About the MSBU portion or?
The right-of-way.
The right-of-way?
Yeah.
To my knowledge, this is built per the approved plan, and the surveys are correct in relation to the fact that our county surveyor has gone through this with a fine-tooth comb and checked all the titles and survey data and checked all the monuments. So in my understanding, there's no encroachment on the plat area. That they're speaking to another area, I believe, that has a code violation. The curbing that was mentioned on one of the areas for the right-of-way / alleyway was for drainage purposes. I believe that particular alleyway is wooded, but again, this is not personal knowledge on my part. This is based on the plans and what was approved by the DRC.
Okay.
So the contention is they seem to have some expectation of using vehicles in those alleyways, and I'm not sure that that's even possible and physically possible in some cases.
So we vetted everything. I mean, because basically we've had an attorney that's basically said that it's going to end up in court. And to me, you know, we tend to be there a lot, but I tend to avoid that.
These will be your county right-of-ways and alleyways. If there are some encroachments in there, then our code enforcement and as county engineer, I'll work to make sure that that's corrected.
So the citizens will still have access to those
Yes, sir.
alleyways?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
This came up Friday, and I'm sorry I haven't been able to speak to the folks directly, but we'll continue to work with them. And again, it is still going to be your county-maintained and county-owned right-of-ways and alleyways. So you still have jurisdiction.
So, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, Meredith, could you come back and while Joy's here and I'm just trying to figure your contention, Meredith. She said that it's still going to be open to the public, and the MSBU is only going to apply to those. So what's your other concern?
Well, our concern is that what's dedicated on the Navy Point plat is a 15-foot alley or right-of-way that goes all the way around. In parts of the development, this is narrowed down to 7 or 8 feet. There are places where there's a fire hydrant and a storm drain that encroaches on the alleyway. There are places where there's a stop sign placed in the alleyway. And so it appears that this new development is not respecting the previously recorded 15-foot alleyways as required by the Navy Point plat.
Can you answer that, Joey?
Or Drew.
Or Drew, one of y'all?
Yes, sir. Commissioner, infrastructure can be located inside the right-of-way, and these alleyways are listed on their plat as right-of-way. That's where you're going to find our drainage. You're going to find your fire hydrants in that right-of-way.
All right, Board, any other questions for Drew, Joy?
No.
Drew,
Yeah,
Joy?
that's-
Well, Drew, let me ask you this, though. So, but if the right-of-way is specifically platted to be an accessible alleyway, that just seems like a contradiction. Help me understand that.
So keep in mind, it's like any right-of-way. Right-of-way does not start, your property doesn't start at the asphalt, right?
Sure.
It's set back from that. Generally, the road will be centered in the right-of-way, but the right-of-way is going to be a lot wider than the paving, and that's where you're going to find the infrastructure, instead of putting all that on private property.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Drew, after listening to the attorney, and I just want to make clarification here because I want to make sure everything's open. On everything in developmental services, is there anything that we're not doing to meet the land code that would, ma'am, I don't know your last name, Meredith, but that she's saying that could put the county at risk in any sort of lawsuit?
So this subdivision was built according to the construction plans for it, which were approved by the county. And it was built to those plans.
So you believe it meets the intent of the 15-foot, the right-of-way, the
I do.
MSBU, everything?
I do.
Okay.
So, Christian, do we have, and ultimately, we get a lot of advice and then we end up in lawsuits that we don't win. I mean, is there any risk factor legally in approving this? They've said it's already been approved. I mean, what's the risk factor in approving this legally?
Well,
I mean, I've just heard what Meredith just said, so I'm just trying to get some legal advice from our
I can't
counsel.
promise that someone wouldn't file suit, but it sounds like staff did the appropriate vetting and they've recommended approval. You followed the usual procedures. There was no irregularity.
At other unopened right-of-ways, or unopened alleyways, this same sort of thing has happened to other places in the county? I know we've vacated a lot of those sorts of properties, but has that sort of thing happened like this? This seems kind of unique, like I haven't really seen this.
So Navy Point is an older plat, and it does have a lot of alleyways throughout it. As the residents were saying, there is a conflict on one of the other alleyways with a fence. We don't generally see alleyways coming in with subdivisions these days. But this one, as it is platted outside this plat, this Pless Landing plat, and it is noted on this plat that existing alleyway is there.
On the other alleyway that has the fence issue, is the county going to be implicated by that at all? Or were you going to have any liability for that fence being built?
I don't know enough about that issue to speak to it.
Yeah. Okay.
So, I mean, I would ask you, you're a professional. Does this need to be vetted more, or are we ready to go and you feel comfortable moving it forward?
We feel comfortable bringing the item forward. Our surveyor has reviewed the plat.
Because it's our surveyor, it's his license on the line if it's inaccurate, I would assume, whoever surveyed it. I mean, whose bond's on the line if it's not accurate?
That would be a question for legal.
Well,
Seriously, I mean, this hasn't come up before.
I don't know who surveyed or who was responsible for that.
Who surveyed it? Well, it would be his bond if he
Yeah,
surveyed
obviously,
it. I
it would
mean,
be
it
if
would
the
be- I mean,
surveyor-
I don't want us liable.
No, I agree.
He should be liable.
But I think the surveyor would be liable if it was wrong. But I do know in Navy Point because of the previous case.
But you're saying I want staff or legal to tell me that. I mean,
Of course I do.
we get a whole lot of opinions until, we go before the judge.
My understanding in Navy Point, because we weren't building department came in the 80s or 90s. Navy Point was around before that. So a lot of that land there wasn't actually marked correctly, and now we're dealing with these problems. That's the extent of it. And that's
I know
why-
all about, property lines and all
Yeah.
that. Trust me, I have a lot of experience in it.
So I'm just going to the Grieve Court,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
he talked about. So that's a unique case.
People decide which one's the property line.
Kristen, I think what Chairman May was asking, can you answer that question or no, on the surveyor?
Well, if a surveyor didn't perform their professional services correctly, then there could potentially be some liability.
Kristen, can you
for
pull
that
the microphone a
individual.
little, Kristen, can you pull the microphone a little bit
I'm
closer
sorry.
to you, please?
But I don't know who did the survey or if that's the issue necessarily.
I don't have a copy of the backup. It's in your backup who the surveyor was for this plat. The county surveyor also reviewed it and all the monumentation. Again, fire hydrants, those sorts of things are in the right-of-way. That's where they're meant to be. The issue of concern is that that particular fire hydrant might be blocking what would be vehicular access to that alleyway. We can continue to review that in coming days and make sure that those things are installed correctly. If not, we will have the liability and the jurisdiction to take care of it. Or, if you choose, we can postpone this to the next BCC agenda and have some further review before that time. Again, I apologize, Board, this came up on Friday afternoon. I didn't have access to a lot of staff members. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, it just sounds like there's too much meat on the bone to push this thing and force it through. I'd be more supportive of taking the additional time to make sure we got all our ducks in a row. I mean, it's in your district, Commissioner Kohler, but
I don't mind due diligence. Honestly, it's good, it's helpful. I think you guys have done the homework, but I think a couple more weeks just to make sure that we're not liable in any form is probably prudent. And don't take it, Drew, that I don't trust what you're doing. I just think that there's an interest right now that we make sure we have our I's dotted and T's crossed. So I'm fine with dropping it today if everyone else is as well.
So are we working with the developer in ensuring that we get clarification? Because I know.
I mean, I don't think from the developer's point of view that they see a need for further clarification, but
Oh,
whatever the board wants to do. I mean, whatever the board wants to do is fine.
County surveyor can verify locations of these alleyways, stake them for us so that it makes it very clear, and we can discuss it with the concerned citizens before we bring it back to you.
Well, I mean, I know that, Mike, it's your district, but I know those are very reputable developers that's developing this project. So I guess we follow your lead in making sure that we.
All I'm trying to do is do a fresh review. If you can bring it back on May 2nd and we clarify everything, we can push forward. There's obviously been a lengthy discussion here about it. I think it's just prudent to look into it. I mean, so.
Okay,
Drew,
it's your district, so that's fine.
I'll make a motion just to bring it back on the 2nd, to have a second review with the survey.
All right. All those in favor, please vote. Item passes 4-0 to reschedule to May 2nd. Drew?
Second item is Saddle Ridge Phase 2.
Board, we have no, I'm sorry, we do have a speaker. Chris Kerb.
I'll be real brief. I'm not in objection to it. I don't oppose this or for it. I just noticed something in Part A. It says, the roads to be resurfaced prior to issuance of the 45th home permit, 75% build out due to problems noted with raveling, segregation found during inspection of the asphalt on the public roads within the subdivision. This brings to mind, and I looked this up in the Land Development Code under Article 5, 2-5.7 under final plats. You have a listing of incidental deficiencies. And then under Section E, you have acceptable forms of surety. And, basically a letter saying we're going to resurface the road. I mean, that might be in the spirit of the code, but it's actually creating policy. It's actually changing what your land development code, unless there's something somewhere else in the land development code that I missed. And there is? Okay. So there is something somewhere else. Well, that's kind of why I brought it up, because I'm unfamiliar with this with resurfacing roads. So where is that, Horace? Okay. Just had a concern. I just thought I'd bring it up. Thank you.
All right. Board, that's the only speaker. I'd entertain a motion.
Okay, I'll move the item forward, items A, B, C, and D.
All right, super. Is there a second? Thank you. All right. Oh, okay, only, is he's empty? Okay, all right. All those in favor, please vote. Item passes 3-0. Drew?
Third item is McKinnon Townhomes.
Do we have any speakers, Mr. Chairman?
We do not. And this is in District 5. I support this, so I appreciate a motion for A through D.
Okay, I'll make the motion that we approve item 3, A through D.
Super. Thank you. Please vote. Mike? Thank you. All right. Item passes 3-0.
Okay.
Mr. Administrator?
I'm sorry, Commissioner, we still have one more.
We got one more.
Where?
This is in D5 as well, Steve.
Oh, I'm sorry. Brookhaven. Yes, and we do have no speakers, and I would appreciate a motion for this. I do support this as well.
All right,
Apologize.
I'll move
Thank you.
item 4, A, B, C, and D in the affirmative.
Thank you. Please vote. Item passes 3-0. Thank you, Drew. Thank you, Horace. Mr. Administrator?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There are 7 items on the technical public service consent agenda. There are no changes, and there are no speakers.
Entertain a motion for all 7 on the technical public service consent.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right, please vote. Items pass 3-0. Mr. Administrator?
There are 42 items on the budget finance consent agenda. There are no changes. Hold card 2-42 for a speaker.
All right, thank you. I'd entertain a motion for the balance.
Move the balance, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Please vote. Item passes 3-0. Mr. Administrator?
Our speaker is Grover Robinson.
Grover?
Thank you very much. I'd only
buddy.
communicated that y'all need to vote on this if you needed me, but otherwise, if y'all wanted to support it, that's the only reason I'm wanting to come up here, just to say thank you for your willingness to support education. I think this is a great opportunity based on some of the discussions you were having earlier to give people in a poverty like Century the opportunity and access to look at education like what you can get at a state college. And so I certainly hope that you will support this and move this forward. And I did not mean for you to hold this item. I told the lady very clearly that I only need to speak if needed. So otherwise, I appreciate your support.
All right, thanks, buddy. Board, I'd entertain a motion.
I move the item 42, A, B, C, and D in the affirmative.
All right, please vote. Item passes 3-0. Grover, thank you for all the work and all the interactions that you and Dawn had, and the help from Stefan as well, working out the funding sources. It's a very good thing for the town of Century, hopefully a good thing for Pensacola State College as well. Mr. Administrator?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to ask Ms. Lindsay Stevens to come forward. Ms. Car 3-1. You bring your group with you. This morning, I'm happy to present to the board for confirmation as your new purchasing director, Ms. Lindsay Stevens. She has stepped into the role full force. She's made some changes. She's continuing to work with other staff and hold different seminars on how to do business with Escambia County. She's driving a lot of work. Even on this agenda, particularly here, we have a lot of contracts that have been awarded, and I appreciate her hard work and her taking over the reins there and purchasing, and it has made a world of difference, and Lindsay, I'm proud of you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Really quick, I want to say thank you all for your vote of confidence. Wes, Wesley, Debbie especially. Thank you to Kristen for your guidance. Thank you to my amazing team for helping us get where we are today. And thank you to my husband for encouraging me to come to the county 2 years ago.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, thank you. I do need y'all to vote on that, though.
All right, board, I'd entertain a motion for the item.
I'll move the item in the affirmative.
Thank you. Thank you. Please vote. Item passes 4-0.
Congratulations.
And, yeah, congratulations. And purchasing is, as the administrator mentioned, it is very important to all of our districts. It's what pushes our projects out. And that is our, individually, that is our scorecard for our constituents, is what we actually complete and produce. So thank you. Mr. Administrator.
Card 3-2, OLF8, we have 4 speakers.
Okay.
Fred Hemmer.
Good morning, Fred Hemmer, 207 East Intendencia Street. We all know why I'm here, and after the last meeting, Wes and I spoke. Wes offered to, as in his words, all hands on deck meeting with the county staff and Will Dunaway and our people to look at the zoning issues, with the DPZ master plan as they exist and the implications for us trying to accept that type of zoning in the time frame that you all would like us to close on the property. We had, Will Dunaway prepare a detailed memo, and that was sent to the county Thursday a week ago. So last week I called Wes to follow up when we could schedule this meeting, and Wes had not received that memo yet, that document. And I called Will Dunaway back, and so on Thursday it was resent to the county, and we got confirmation back that the county did receive it. And so I stand here wondering where we are in the process. I told Wes that I have time tomorrow or any time next week to, bring our people together, and discuss those issues.
Yeah, and we're happy to do that. I saw your availability this morning, so I'll work with our staff and we'll get that set up, and we'll come around the table with all the players and we'll go through the items and go through the issues. Happy to do it.
Very good. And, as I said at the last meeting, after we go through that process, we're willing to adjust that top line number, but as I mentioned before, we want to see what we can really put on that property. When you look at the existing zoning, you probably have, that in the property that we would buy, I think approximately 50 acres are zoned industrial. You all don't want that. You don't want us to buy property that's going to be in competition with you, and not even in addressing the potential for affordable housing on that property too. So, nobody wants that in our plan, but, that could happen with that zoning. So I'm here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Teresa Blackwell.
Happy Earth Day. And good morning. This deal, new deal, is no better. In fact, it falls short of the Hemmer and Partners deal. I hesitate to say Beulah says, but I say no to a modified master plan. We have a master plan, a great master plan from DPZ that is part of our land development code, and we expect that to go forward. The money is probably not as good as Hemmer's offer, since it leaves nearly all the wetlands to the county. The price per upland acre is likely much less. And probably most important of all, why should we trust them with such an important and complicated project? Ryan Chavers, Chavers Construction, the Better Business Bureau has a complaint there against the company that I could not find was ever settled. A lot of arguing back and forth, but no clear conclusion. And we have heard the name Chavers before from the dais, as the commissioner recused himself from an item because of his association. Cliff Moe is interesting, listed as a home builder on the BBB site. And on Sunbiz has been active in dozens of different kinds of corporations. Bottom line, what are their credentials? What experience do they have that relates to a project as big and complicated as this? What have they done that would qualify them to do this? Show us the pictures. And finally, I would just like to say, I was very sad to hear about Bob Graham. There's an example of someone who left a true legacy for us. And part of that was his family's development on their farm. They had the foresight back in the 60s to hire an expert master planner to create Miami Lakes, the kind of design we would love to have on OLF8. So think about that. And Bob Graham came here, and he was such a wonderful man. He spoke to us at Cibicon, and I spoke with him the next day at a smaller meeting, and he said he wanted to show me that development down there, and I'm very sad that I never got the chance to see that. So think about your legacy. Do you want it to be, we helped our friends to the greatest extent possible, or do you want it to be that we did the best for our community, for our state, for our country? This is your opportunity to do that, to do the right thing for Beulah and for the county. Thank you. Any questions?
Melissa Pino.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Chairman Barry. Teresa, is this yours? Somebody left. Oh, there you go, Mr. Hemmer. It's funny that the Navy Point thing and OLF8 were on the agenda at the same on the same day, because unfortunately Navy Point has become a lesson in how not to do OLF8 on a really small scale, of course. But there was room to do anything in the world on that plat, and I was really hoping that they would do some sort of mixed-use town center, because that would have harkened back exactly to what that plat was for. And despite what Teresa may think, I have always wanted the people in Beulah to get their town center and some kind of really nice mixed use. I want the people up there to be happy. And I was for Mr. Himmer's development. If Mr. Himmer, if it was down to D.R. Horton versus Mr. Himmer, great, because D.R. Horton would not have been a good thing. But I really think that Teresa, before she's so married to a single idea. It's got to be Mr. Himmer. It's got to be the Navy Federal Downtown Coalition. You know, she really should talk to the people that have the new offer in. I've known Ryan Chavers for years now. I think super highly of Ryan. He's a great guy. He's local. He helps people out. He does good work. And I just really think that the citizens up there, rather than being married to who has to do this development or a single version of that master plan, because every single person has said the master plan does not work completely. There are things that are going to have to be changed. There are going to be decisions to be made. So give these new people a chance. They're local. They care. You know, Fred can present his exact plan for what he plans on doing and how he's going to stick to that master plan. Let the new people talk to their local people and let them know what they plan to do. Ryan is an honorable person. I don't know the other gentleman, but quite frankly, I was excited to see his name and somebody more local and even a better offer come into the conversation. Don't beat him up out of hand just because he's not Mr. Himmer, and Mr. Himmer has been in these conversations for years. Thank you.
Matthew Couch.
Good morning, Matthew Couch, 127 Palafox Place, Suite 200. I'm here as a representative for the proposed buyers, Mr. Moe and Mr. Chavers. I'm an attorney with Moorhead Law Group. As you all know, the letter of intent did come from Steve Moorhead. He wished to be here himself this morning. However, he has a prior engagement that conflicted with this once the meeting was moved from last Thursday. He does send his regards. Again, just here to represent the proposed buyers. We do look forward to working with the county attorney, and the citizens of Beulah, and we appreciate everyone's consideration. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for him.
Sure.
In your letter of intent, I saw a lot of different language about a lot of different things you're going to put in there. I didn't see specifically called out a town center, and as you know, that's a prominent component of the master plan and one of the previous offers. Can you clarify whether or not that is an intention of this new group? Because I know that's very important to the people that I represent in Beulah.
Understood. I believe the intention is to come up with a modified master plan that sticks or closely follows the current DPZ. I do not know specifics as to whether that includes a town center. Steve Moorhead may have more details on that.
And also, just since we're talking about, the master plan, and I talked to Marina Khoury, part of DPZ, one of the managing members there, and she acknowledged as much that there are certain aspects of it that are going to require modification. I understand that. We've had, I believe this will be the 8th offer now that we've had on it, and to a person, they've all said this is going to require some modifications. You heard Mr. Hemmer just talk about the industrial property that's within the footprint of what we're talking about here, and we know certain laws have passed at the state level that allow unfettered construction of high towers of affordable housing. We've seen that in Dade County. I think the legislation was horrible. They did not walk it back enough in the last session. It's still a problem around the state. So to those who say, well, you're going to abandon the master plan, I would say simply, Marina Khoury understands there's going to be some things. There's issues with the drainage, as illustrated in the master plan, going to require some changes. So I'm not hung up on that, but I am kind of hung up on the town center. Again, that land was supposed to be for job generation. We had a very, very hard-fought, years-long compromise that we came to. So my position at this point in the game is sticking to the compromise. That's what the citizens wanted. That's what this board voted for. So that's going to be an important clarification that I'm going to need. Thank you.
Understood. Thank you, Commissioner. We'll certainly take that under advisement and recognize that point.
No, thank you. Jeff, obviously, this is a project that came about when Steve and I were running years ago, and it's been, I've followed the lead of you and Steve on this, obviously, because you know your citizens and your constituents better than I do. But you said we've had 8, negotiations that have failed.
Right.
I mean, there's at least one commissioner up here who said he wants 30+ million. I've said my drop dead is 25 million. So it's going to be 9, 10, 11, and 12. I mean, I don't know the start of the negotiation is a good faith of what we expect the dollar to be. And then you got to work out the town center, you got to work out everything else. For me, we got to work out the dollar amount. And there's not a lot of discussion for me until we work out the dollar amount and how we're going to reinvest that money back to the citizens that we represent. How am I going to get some more sidewalks and some more lights and some things in my district? And so that, to me, is the beginning point of the negotiation. Any other negotiation may not be in good faith because, there's 2 people have said that I've said I'm not going to vote less than 25 million. And so that's where we can start at. So, and I just wanted to, at least throw that out there.
Yeah, no.
Unless there's some underlying thing where you come and there's, some other value that comes to the citizens of Escambia County that's not, dollars. But I do know that, I got a fire going on right now in Brownsville. That's probably because inadequate lighting, and inadequate electrical. And I know that, there are still places in my district in Inslee, in Wedgewood, in Brownsville, in Shantytown that still don't have public sewer.
Yeah.
That's even like when we talk about CRA dollars from Children's Trust. How can I in good faith say, okay, well, I'm going to waive this or I'm going to do this, and I have citizens who can't do a small barbecue joint in Brownsville because they don't have a grease trap and sewer.
Yeah.
And so those dollars, $500,000, $1 million means a lot to the citizens that I represent. And so 8, 9, 10, I don't know how many more of these things we're going to bring back and put on the agenda. Mm-hmm. There's no sense in putting anything else on the agenda until the number gets right.
Yeah.
For me.
No, and I appreciate that. I would simply say that the difference between this offer and the previous one is, in this offer, so far as I understand from reading it, you build out the infrastructure, including the boulevard. So that's a several $1 million swing there. Plus,
and that may be a plus, Jeff.
so if you add that back into the mix, that's between the 22.5 minus the 20 plus the $2 to $3 million to build it all out. You're getting close to that 25. The value of it. So I don't disagree. We want to get top dollar for it, but at some point, it is a piece of property. It's worth what someone's willing to pay for it. That's what it's worth. Yeah.
What we're willing to sell it for and what they're willing to pay.
And the great news for the board and for the citizens is, we're right now sitting at about 14.5. We've sold a portion of it for 4.2 to Navy Federal. They did a world-class development there with their park, probably the finest park in the Panhandle, so far as I've seen, and I think we can make it even better with the addition of a tennis court and a children's playground, which I'm going to work diligently toward doing if we can ever come to a deal with one of this 8, 10, 12. The problem is, though, gentlemen, it's going to become shop worn, and it is in some respects already. And I think that with interest rates going back up, the economy is not as stable as some people want you to think it is. Let's just put it that way. Other things in the world going on could really make things go bad. So at some point, we got to bring it in for a landing. And whether we get 30 million or not, right now it sits there vacant, generating no revenue for the school board or for us, and no value for the citizens. It just sits there vacant. So.
And I agree with that, Jeff. But Jeff, I will say one thing that we can't lose sight of, and that's probably not on the developers at all, but on good faith and goodwill to the citizens. We promise jobs, and as you said, we don't know where the economy is, but for
we don't have to wait on that.
yeah, we got to go back in there and create those light industrial jobs at $60,000 to $80,000. Those are seeing.
We've got 250 acres. We don't have to wait for anyone.
Right.
We're working on that.
That's my point.
We're working
Yeah.
on that right now.
And I'm sure you are, but I mean, I just wanted to make sure that that's there, because at the end of the day, it's great to have a restaurant. It's great to have a town center. It's great to have, quite frankly, what's affordable housing? There's no such thing if you don't create jobs. Create the jobs and then get fair value for the house. I mean, but we're trying to say we're going to create affordable housing, workforce housing. You're not. Not when people are making $12, $13 an hour. There's no such thing as housing for those citizens. So that's why we got to create the jobs for them. And to me, that was a job creation project. At the end of the day, I get the town center and I get all this. That project was supposedly the last flat land that Jim Cronley brought forward that you could put light industrial and create jobs for the citizens of Escambia County, because we have no more land. While we're sitting here worrying about, a Applebee's, Santa Rosa County is running very fastly, creating those type of jobs that allow for those citizens to be able to afford the house that they want in Santa Rosa, rather than a subsidized house that someone's giving them. So if we create the jobs, people can buy the house that they want to buy. And to me, that's the more priority for me, is the promise that we made is job creation on that property.
And hopefully there'll be, some, some type of activity coming forward pretty quickly on, part of the 250 acres on the north half, hopefully.
And I wasn't down on that, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to make sure that we kept that front and center. A lot of times we get distracted in terms of what they're laying on, a fire station, a school, or nothing against you, a public park or Applebee's. But the sole intent of that was job creation. So I look forward to y'all bringing that forward.
And Commissioners, there's, as was mentioned, and I do have to abstain from votes that relate to Ryan Shavers. Personally, I don't have a conflict with Cliff Moe, but I do with Ryan. So when an agreement, if we're able to get to that point, would come back for a vote, I would have to abstain from a vote, but I'm certainly able to discuss it. It is a public matter, and I have have the ability and I have a responsibility to discuss it. But I think we all understand I do have a voting conflict when it comes to a vote, and I don't think the administrator's looking for a vote today. I think that the hope from the administrator is simply whether to move forward with discussions with the parties that sent the new letter and see what Madam Attorney, I think, will be back at work a week from today, I believe. I could be wrong, but I know she's out this week as well. But kind of whether the board generally kind of green lights administrator and the attorney to have discussions with the folks that sent the new letter. I did talk to Steve Moorhead on Friday. He as his counterpart mentioned, he sent regrets for not being able to be here, but it was kind of due to the change in our schedule, having the meeting be on Monday. There are a couple of people in his office, I think, that have been much more involved in the discussions than Mr. Couch has been to this point. I don't begrudge him. I don't think he's been a part of many of the discussions, going forward. So when Allison's back, I think if the majority of us are good with them moving forward with just, with the discussion with, Steve and, with Steve and Cliff and Ryan and Wes and Allison, trying to nail down some of the terms. I think the terms, the top line number is always going to be a headline grabber. But what's been my concern from, the discussion with Horton and the discussion with, previous folks that have submitted offers and what we've been working with Fred and Will on, for the last number of months. The top line is a number, but the top line could say 80 million. If the terms say we're never going to get it, it doesn't matter what the top number is. And I don't think that there's any debate that the terms in this, at least in this LOI, the terms appear to be much more along the lines of what the board wants, which is a quick close and something happening on the property with money going hard pretty quickly, and so that, you know, once you have money and substantial money go hard, you know, you don't just have a buyer, you have a partner moving forward, because they have, you know, they have considerable equity that's now dead money that's gone, you know, if they don't get the deal done. So, you know, the terms, I think the terms are what has, you know, for me, for the last year and a half of real discussions, whether they've been with Breland or Horton or you know, Mr. Hemmer's group, the terms have been very problematic. And I think these terms are much more along the lines of the feedback the board has given publicly. So, you know, I would think that it would make sense to continue those discussions, or ask the administrator to continue those discussions with them. But Commissioner May?
Yeah, and Commissioner Berry, I would only assume that the county attorney and county administrator are going to negotiate terms that are going to be fair and equitable, and certainly to the buyer as well as to the county. And so, I mean, I would admit that I've not followed those details, probably not nearly as close as you would have, or Commissioner Bagash would have. And so, you know, in terms of the, you know, this project does have a lot of attention. When I talk about bottom line number, you know, I simply just want to be in a position to advocate and present the case of how we redistribute these funds to help all the citizens, because I continue to go back, although I think you give preference to the residents of Beulah and Nature Trail. This was an all-in by all citizens of Escambia County. And so they all
It could have been a countywide failure, is what, if it hadn't worked. Yes, it wouldn't have just been a Beulah failure. It would have been a countywide failure, I assure you. That
And
you and I would have toted that failure on our backs as much as
just one more failure, that's all.
as much as anyone in the county would have. But yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, yeah.
And to that point, and so I recognize what yourself and Jeff are saying, you know, about the bottom line in the terms, but you're right. You know, this is something that we started. I mean, nobody, you know, as I come to the end of my service, I mean, there's nothing more that I would want to do than to get this project going and get it, you know, going, at least going before we leave here. So it's important to me, but at the end of the day, too, I just want to make sure that we can distribute some more funds, and I trust, you know, our administration and our legal team to do the negotiation. But as you said, you know, it makes headlines, but you know, perception is reality. There is a perception that, you know, people want to see and benefit of dollars that's placed back in their communities.
Absolutely. All right, board, if there's no further discussion, Wes, do you have some general direction? All right. Madam Counsel.
Yes, there are three action items on the county attorney's report. I can answer any questions.
All right. Board, I entertain a motion for the action items. Thank you.
Second.
Please vote.
And
Please all vote. All right, thank you. Item passes 4-0. Madam Counsel.
there are two discussion items on the county attorney's report, and I believe there are speakers on the first item.
Okay. First item, Keith Bowe. This is board's consideration for request of payment of attorney's fees.
Thank you. Regarding Ms. Kinney's request for legal fees, isn't there a time period in which she had 30 days to request legal fees be paid? Isn't that time already passed? Haven't we already paid $90,000 of her fine? This seems to be totally out of order, and I'm just wondering why is it happening? Why is it being considered? I'm just amazed. But isn't there a period of time that's already passed for this request? And is it going to be the precedent that we try and use either for or against the case with, with PNJ, the case with Jonathan Owens, Alex Ardruni? I mean, these things are all going to come up. And we're taking things we don't have to pay, and we're paying them. That's the question. I mean, this is salt on the wound. That's all I've got to say.
All right, thank you, Board. That's our only speaker, and that's our last speaker for today. Oh, I'm sorry. Melissa Pino, I didn't. There's what?
Thank you, Melissa Pino, 413 Southeast Boblets. Keith Bowe has no idea what he's talking about. Kate went to the Merit System Protection Board, which is, you know, the proper order for things when this horrible thing happened to her. I've been really quiet about all the Edler stuff because it's not going to do any good anyway, and it makes me sick. It literally makes me sick, and it hurts my heart to see how all of this stuff is winding up. $1 million to her off of no evidence. It was very clear. You know, when Commissioner May says it publicly, when Commissioner Kohler, you know, says someday he'd like to see the evidence, and I stood here for years and said, fire her now because she is going to come back and sue the county anyway. And what she did to Kate Kinney was atrocious, and if I were Kate, I'd be filing a cease and desist on all of these people over at ECW that are talking trash about her crimes that have all been expunged. I never said I was advocating for everybody in that situation. I said that I was advocating for the innocent people. And when Kim Skivosky and I went to the state's attorney's office off of Tom Williams' subpoena, and I talked with them and I talked with Kennedy from the FDLE, they never even knew, they had never even been turned over the evidence, that those people that were being harassed were the ones that two consecutive administrators did not do anything with their toxic workforce complaints, and then they were the ones that caught hell for it. Kate is perfectly innocent of these charges, which is why her charges have been expunged. I don't know whether you guys can legally pay the $5,000, but for God's sakes, $5,000 for an innocent woman whose legal should have never been cut off from the county to begin with, versus $1 million to a woman who came to the county to sue it and we're still running. Still, she'll get, I'm sure, on the qui tam as well. So if you can legally pay Kate's fees, please do it. Thank you.
All right, Board, that's all the speakers.
I'd like to have a few moments of discussion. So I hear what you're saying. I've never had a conversation with Dr. Edler. Nothing. Not even on a phone call, Facebook, anything. I sit down with Kristen this week. We're convoluting two different issues here, as we always seem to do, to make it complicated. The county in 20 had to pay $5,000 to the Department of Health because the training officer gave out fraudulent cards. You can take a pretrial agreement after you want an administrative board. That does not mean that that didn't happen. It did happen. That's why we're in the mess with Edler with the False Claims Act. It's just a fact. And we're shooting each one of our foots at the same time. I would, after sitting down, Kristen, I'd like your recommendation. Should we pay this?
It's the board's determination to make. I can point you to the policy, which was included in the backup, and also advise the policy includes a definition of successfully defend or prevail, and the statutory and the common law remedy that authorize the payment of fees and costs are limited to payment for a prevailing defendant who successfully defends against a claim or charge.
I appreciate that, Kristen, and I sat down with her in depth on this because this is half a stack of the stuff I had to do, still have to do, just to be a licensed nurse. If you fraudulently bring your nursing license, your BLS license, your ACLS license, your PALS license, your TNCC license, your TCC license, you lose your job. It's public safety. We require it so the community knows they have safe people taking care of them. If you don't do your Cs, I don't know Kenny. She may have been a great woman. She gave out fraudulent cards, and it's wrong. We had to pay $5,000. So I can't support it.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to weigh in on it.
Sure.
I've followed this very carefully since what had happened. I was on the board in 2018 in July when the state came in and gave our EMS department top marks. We got accolades. Shortly thereafter, we made some personnel changes, and things just seem to devolve, I'll use that word. With respect to Kate Kenny, you're right, this board did pay her $90,000 legal fee because everything she was accused of, she was never convicted of or charged with. And it's easy to say she did this, she did this, she did this when you read the charging document. But when you read the stipulated settlement, and make no mistake about it, people take deals all the time. They take deals to save money, to save legal fees, to move forward. She did not admit guilt to any of that. She was not convicted of any of that. She took a deal. She took a deal. And so you have to be very careful up here, Mike, when you start saying people are guilty of something. Read what the stipulated settlement.
Who's responsible for the $5,000
I'm not going to
fines?
answer your question. I have the floor. Just before you spout off up here and destroy someone's character more than a former employee tried to do, be careful what you say. Be careful, because she did not plead to any of that. She did not plead to any of that. She's not been convicted of any of that. I'm going to strongly support this employee. There were a number of employees who had their lives turned upside down and ruined. Look, we don't like the way some judges rule. We don't like certain settlements, the way they fall. I can only control within my 3 feet, but when it comes to things like this, I will not countenance people up here running down the character of a person trying to kick someone when they're down. She did not do the things that you're saying, Mike. Be very careful. She did not do that. She did not plead to that. Read the agreement she signed. She signed a deal. She's a stipulated settlement agreement. She's not convicted. None of this is on her record. We owe her the $5,000, in my opinion.
I just want to know who's ever going to be responsible for this, because in the current environment we're in, no one is. And the only people getting hurt up here is the citizens of Escambia County.
Incorrect.
Hey, I'm talking.
Yep.
You just told me it's my turn.
Mike has the floor. Mike has the floor.
Thank you. I appreciate the respect. Only people getting hurt in this county behind this is the taxpayers. You're going to pay millions and millions and millions of dollars because this man's in vindictive behavior against people. And it's enough. Enough. We can't afford it.
All right. I'm not vindictive when I stand up for first responders. There were 6 of them. 6 of them that got the finger pointed at them. You talk about vindictive reasons. You weren't here. You don't know. You're ignorant. You're glib. I'll tell you what happened. Someone didn't like something they thought they overheard. Sounds like a theme. And that she went after people she didn't like. And guess what? 5 of those 6 had everything, nothing. They weren't charged with anything. They had their lives turned upside down. They had to pay their own lawyers. And now we're cleaning up the mess. So that's what really happened here. Now, you say no one was held accountable. Someone was held accountable. One man was. He was a poor record keeper, and he was found accountable. But all these other people did not do the things they were accused of, Mike. So look at the one person who did it, and he did pay a price. But the rest of these folks were not charged with anything.
All right. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. We never wrote to the Department of Health on this board and asked them why their investigation process was so screwed up and we're so right. So I'll do that letter and ask the governor why his department was so wrong and this board is so right that they find us and no one on our board is held accountable. Nobody. I'm sorry, that's just the facts. And so if no one here had the courage to say the investigative process was wrong, nobody.
All right, you gonna write a letter to the governor? Because you want people held accountable? When you write, okay, you can write another letter if you want. Write some to the state attorney, make baseless allegations. But when you write that letter to the governor, maybe you ought to self-report yourself. When you got on this board, you got drunk one night and called each of us, and I had to save you from a sunshine law violation. Have them investigate that. You called each member of this board. Yeah. So when you put your letter to the governor, maybe send one to the state attorney and have him investigate you for trying to commit a sunshine violation. When you got drunk one night and you called me, we'll look it up.
Hey,
and I told you, I saved you from yourself.
If you want to go down in the gutter, we'll go ahead and do that. When you threatened me,
I'm telling the truth.
Drinking beer because I wouldn't vote for you and you told me you had the votes. Remember that?
That's a lie. That never happened.
Mine's a lie. He's right. But that's actually what happened.
I have a phone record.
You had your phone on while you at Seville while you were telling me because I didn't vote for you?
I've got a phone record of you calling me.
You have a phone record of being at Seville Quarter where you said,
no,
I have
didn't
the
happen.
votes?
Nope.
Oh, come on, man. See, that's the problem. Your forked tongue gets you in trouble. Just like,
no,
and you
it does
make up allegations. Do whatever report you want on me.
No, you're
But
the one writing letters. Go send her a letter.
I know dang well what you said, and you do too.
Go send a letter.
Have a seat.
Go send a letter.
Have a seat.
This is derangement.
Have a seat.
This is the derangement.
Keith,
that
have
I
a
spoke
seat.
of.
Have a seat. All right.
Kristen,
thank you, board. Okay.
can you kind of give us a clarification of this case? I mean, we
certainly.
settled it. She's
So-
asking for $5,000. We gave her 90. I mean,
On
I can't.
October
I ain't gonna do the
20th,
drama.
October 20th, 2022, Ms. Kenny first brought a request that the board authorized paying her attorney's fees for the FDOH investigation and the attorney's fees to the
Okay,
plots.
start over, Christian, I'm sorry. Can you just, you lost me, but go ahead, start over.
So in 2022, a request was brought to this board to pay for Ms. Kenny's attorney's fees in two separate proceedings. One was for the criminal investigation, the criminal case with the FDLE, and the amount of $30,000. The other was a request to cover her fees then in the amount of $5,000 for the FDOH investigation. The board approved paying for her attorney's fees in the FDLE case, but did not approve paying her fees for the FDOH case because it was still ongoing.
So the reason we didn't pay because it's ongoing, because, I
And
can
you-
take issue. Mike, I will say it. Listen, sometimes we have responsibility with no authority. Can't, we've only taken advice of what we've been. We only taken advice of what we've been given. So you didn't pay the $5,000 because it was still under investigation, is what you're saying? And we paid the however
The
much.
board at that time decided not to move forward with her request for the FDOH investigation, but did approve the attorney's fees. for
Was she
the criminal
exonerated
case.
from the FDOE investigation?
That case was null prost. And
And what does that mean?
I believe there was pretrial diversion, and then the case has since been closed and the record expunged.
Expunged. So she was not found guilty.
Correct.
She was exonerated.
The case was null prost.
No. But I don't know. Obviously, I don't know very many lawyers.
She was convicted.
She was-
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, board, we
So,
have,
and we've already paid. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Oh.
We've already paid $90,000.
No, that is a separate proceeding. I believe there was an MSPB appeal. This is only about attorney's fees in the criminal case and in the FDOH disciplinary proceeding.
So everyone that was involved in, I guess, the alleged falsification. I mean, obviously, dealing with the Etler case. I mean, there was some falsification of documents. All those people have been removed. None of those people are currently working for us.
That would be a question for Wes. I believe that is the case.
That is correct.
all right, board, so we do have a request from the board to discuss this from the county attorney's office. Do we have a motion to take action, or what does the board want to do?
Well, it might die right here, but I'm going to follow through, and I'm going to stick up for people who got bullied and harassed employees, first responders in this county, and it's happened over and over, and we keep cleaning up the mess. This board had nothing to do with any of it, none of it. But these actions were taken by an employee of ours who was counseled and continued to do what she did. But this employee here was not convicted of anything. There's nothing on her record. She could continue her career if she wanted to. She had to take a deal. But she didn't admit any guilt to anything, and I think we ought to pay the $5,000. If you guys want to support it, I think it's the right thing to do. I'm going to be on record making the motion that we support the payment of $5,000. That's my motion.
All right, board, is there a second?
Jeff, I'll second it for discussion. So, we spend so much money in legal fees, that's ridiculous. And sometimes false accusations, you have to spend your own personal money when you get false accusations. So I experience it. $5,000 is just not a lot of money in terms of how much more we're going to have to spend. If we didn't pay it, what happens, Kristen? Could she repeal it? Would we end up in court in your time and lawyers' time? We've already spent $5,000 talking about it today. If you count up the hours of the staff in here and what we pay lawyers and sitting here, it's more than $5,000.
I adamantly agree with that when you add up the staff time in the room.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
But
But we'll take a lot of staff time just to attack people, We do that, yeah. We don't mind if we're spending legal fees to attack people. That happens every day around here. Kristen, what's the other option?
It's the board's decision.
What I'm saying, and then if she appealed it, would that take your time from your office and spending more time with it? And I want to get some advice from, you have to have some, I get exactly the recommendation, it's purely our decision, but I just want to get a legal opinion as well, because we are knee-deep into lawsuits, and none of us have ever gone to law school. And so we end up in these frivolous lawsuits or courts. And as Commissioner Kohler just said, it's the responsibility of the board. Mike, I take issue with it. Knew nothing about it. You know what? We give it to an administration to hire the best competent staff. I mean, you know, we can't stop people from what they're doing right now. You don't know what, with 1,500 employees, how do we know what we're doing? Someone could be falsifying something right now. There could be an EMS driver that's, you know, doing bad things right now. That's just not the responsibility of the board, although ultimately it comes to us, but we really have no control. And so we have responsibility for things we have no authority over because of the errors that happen. And sometimes all you can do is just try and clean it up. I don't know whether this person's innocent or guilty, but I do want to know our legal position, and I do know oftentimes there have been hundreds and millions of dollars spent on things when people thought that we would be exonerated, and we know that we're on the right side of right, but we still spend millions of dollars of taxpayer dollars. I mean, we talk about frivolous taxpayer dollars. It ain't this board that's been spending frivolous taxpayer dollars on legal. I mean, so, because that's not my intent. I mean, I'm probably the most conservative guy when it comes to spending government dollars. So in the course of things, $5,000, if she's not guilty, I don't know that I would oppose it. I mean, because quite frankly, as I said, we got $5,000 worth of staff in here right now that probably could be going to do good work. You got 10 people out here that make over $100,000. I mean, 120,000. And so they're sitting in here watching this debate over $5,000. That's bad government to me. That's bad administration when we're sitting here arguing over $5,000 when people can be doing good work for our county.
Christian,
I'll
just
take your
reiterate
advice.
what you said. It didn't meet the intent of our instruction, is that correct? The 2014 ordinance, it didn't, that what we talked about, the payment, you agree, that's why you kept saying null, because she wasn't completely exonerated.
So that criminal action, that was dismissed. This is the FDOH investigation in which she entered into a settlement short of a hearing. So there was no ultimate determination. She agreed to settle the case.
After she had agreed to do the administrative board and go through the Merit System Protection Board.
That's an entirely
Right,
different
separate
matter.
process. The problem is not the money here. The problem is the public opinion about safety. And to not even recognize that there was a problem with fraudulent life-saving cards is just, I don't know, I've only been a nurse 33 years. We paid $5,000 and no one's been held accountable. She was a training officer.
We paid a lot more than $5,000 when we were paying Hitler.
It's not good governance to do that, and it doesn't set an image that we're doing public safety the way we should, in my opinion.
If we're doing public safety the same way that we were doing it then, we're not doing it the right way. I'm assured now that there's new administration. We spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to clean up EMS. I mean, we started back with sending Jerry Maygarden over there because we had a problem. And you know what? I can't help that it whether it got corrected or didn't get corrected. I mean, you know, we were not in administration. I mean, all we can do is be a policy board. And so, Mike, you said not sending a good message. To me, we're sending a good message. Clean it up. I've just heard that there's nobody that was working there that's working there now. I mean, so, you know, that's a start. And I'm sure if Wes finds somebody over there in EMS or public safety that's doing bad things now, he's probably going to get rid of them. I mean, and so that's all we can do is support him. I mean, it's human error. So for me, I mean, I'm not going to stay here all day and swap.
Yeah, so if the landing spot is the greater, is what the kind of comment from you, Commissioner May, is the greater good. I mean, the alternative would be potentially drop and bring it back, but then we're going to end up in the same devolved discussion. So I just soon do what we're going to do. I can live with it. So if
I don't
there's
feel
a
good
motion
about it,
and a-
Mike.
Well, there's a motion and a second. I mean, so if there's no further useful discussion about the item, let's vote. All those in favor, please vote by saying.
Chairman, before you
I'm sorry.
vote,
Yeah.
I need to make sure that the $5,000 does not include the $250 Kate Kinney fine as it was in the Sullivan bill.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Is that clear enough?
Have we paid anybody else's bill, or is this the first one?
I believe Matthew Solover.
We paid his too?
Well, he also had a settlement agreement similar to this one that resulted from the FDOH investigation, and I believe and I'm rusty on this, but I believe there was also a fee request related to the criminal investigation as well.
Okay. Wes, we got protocols in place now to ensure that never happens again, I would assume.
We have policies, procedures, and practices in place. Our job is to make sure those policies and procedures are followed. I think that was some of the catastrophic failure over there back in the
Yeah,
day.
I mean, we had the policies the whole time. You know, I mean, we never, you know, I mean, so.
Well, my bad.
I believe, I mean, I'm sure.
But
you know.
Steve, when you say all we can do as this board is support policy-wise and administration, there was lots of money, a lot of direction to go straighten it out. So, I mean, if you send someone to do a job and they don't do it, I mean, I don't know. I mean, so there was effort to correct things in public safety and EMS. I mean,
It's all very frustrating, and you know, it's reminiscent of some situations, I think, where, you know, I don't know that there are two sides and one side is correct and one side is incorrect. I think that there's maybe not ideal behavior on both sides of a discussion, you know. So
Right.
it's just another in the line of, in the litany of those problems manifesting themselves. So,
I don't
yeah. No, it's not, you know, living with it is probably a good phrase. So yeah, I can live with it.
all right, so I got one final question for council. So are we setting a precedent where there's a floodgate of what others who are coming forth that we're gonna probably be
I could not-
petitioned to pay?
I could not predict that. I do not know.
Are there, how many more out there that we would have to pay?
All I know is that in the past, Mr. Salover presented a request, and I believe, now that I'm thinking about it, I believe that was limited to his settlement with the FDOH, the attorney's fees that were incurred for that defense. I don't know about any others.
All right. Board ready for a vote? We have a motion and a second, and and there was some clarification given by the council for Madam Clerk, so I think we're good there. So all those in favor, please vote by saying aye or by raising your hand. Any dissent? Thank you. Item passes 3-1 with Commissioner Kohler in dissent. Madam Council.
Yes, the second discussion item is a request for further direction regarding a pending Attorney General's opinion request. You had previously directed the County Attorney's Office to seek an opinion once, and this is relating to the proposed Chappie James Memorial Plaza, and whether or not tourist development tax funds could be utilized for the construction of the plaza improvements and so forth. We were directed to seek an opinion once the ownership of not only the property but the improvements was determined, and that has not been determined, and the Attorney General will not answer that question or, you know, address that potential whether or not it could qualify as a museum, because that is tied to who owns it. But there is one other possible authorization, and we could narrow the request, or we could simply withdraw the request until ownership is determined.
If I might, Mr. Chairman, Kristen, we have batted this thing back and forth like a game of, I'll use pickleball now instead of badminton, back and forth between the TDC and the BCC and the TDC and the BCC and then the Chappie James Museum people. I mean, at some point, I believe there's broad support for what we're going to do out there at that bridge to honor Chappie James. I think we've done our due diligence, and I mean, you know, my understanding was that the city came forward with you know, documentation that showed that you know, that they were going to own the property, and therefore it was a allowable expense since it's publicly owned. So if the board moves forward, at some point we can litigate these things to death, and we can request letters that take 6 months, and we're never ever going to be able to do that. I mean, listen,
Commissioner, did they clarify who's going to own this? The improvements above the dirt? I think that's the question at hand.
Well, I mean,
and I don't know the answer.
There's a support agreement. There's an agreement between the Chappie James folks and the city. But I mean, let me ask it this way. Let me ask the question this way. If we become decisive, as we should, and make a decision to fund it, I want to support that. Worst case scenario, what would happen? I mean, I don't want to get in trouble, but this is just so opaque. It's obviously going to bring people
But
here.
Jeff, it seems simple. Did we send a letter to the mayor, to their legal counsel, ask them the question?
No, we've requested an opinion from the Attorney General's office as to whether it's the funding source that's the issue, because it's a restricted funding source. We can only use TDT money for authorized purposes under the statute. And there's a question as to whether this particular use would qualify.
So you've clarified whether or not who's going to own it?
No, we have not been able to ascertain, and I've since, even Mayor Reeves recently sent you all a letter, but it only stated that they would own the property, and I since followed up with the city attorney's office, and he again confirmed that who will own all of the improvements, that has yet to be determined.
But could he say, I mean, the letter to the mayor, did he say we will own it or we will not own it? I mean, it's pretty black and white.
He did not address who would own the improvements.
Can we just send that letter? Because I'm with Jeff, send that letter, either they're going to own it or they're not going to own it, and then we get Attorney General's support. I mean, I'm going to support this. You know,
Did they Kristen, did they specifically say they wouldn't own the improvements, or they only alluded to the dirt?
They will only confirm that they will own the property, and who will own any of the improvements will be determined in the future.
Okay. All right.
Well, I mean, so they acknowledge that you asked the question, but they said they'll determine that in the future. And
So
do they recognize that funding is dependent on whether or not who owns it?
Well, funding could qualify under one category, but in order to qualify, we would have to know the ownership element. Then there is a second possible category that it could fall under. And so we could narrow the request that was previously sent and only ask about that one purpose and see if this
Board,
project qualifies for that.
How about this? So we meet 9 days. What if why doesn't someone try to clarify either, I mean, presumably there's three parties. There's the county, the city, and the foundation. Why don't we try to clarify between the city and the foundation who's going to own the improvements and bring it back for discussion rather than taking action today? And because what I think what we wouldn't want to do is amend a request to the AGO's office for something, and then after we find out different information, try to amend it again. I mean, I'm not
Mr.
saying,
Chairman,
I don't know
I
that this
will
looks
call
great
you-
anyway, but it certainly doesn't look great doing that. So maybe we just put it off a week and try to narrow that down.
I have to meet with the mayor, you know, I think I'm at NOBCO, you know, at the end of this week, but before our next meeting, I will meet with Mayor Reeves.
And try to
get
define who's going to own the improvements.
And I will, if you would reach out to the legal, Christian, today.
I already have.
Would you send them another email asking them to clarify it and whether they answer it or not? Then I'll talk to DC.
I have it in writing. He's already confirmed that they
What
do
was
not
his-
know. It has not been determined regarding the improvements, with the exception of the jet airplane, which is on loan from the Air Force.
Okay.
That's convoluted. I'll talk to DC.
Okay.
Because, I mean, you can't, I mean, you have to get an answer. I'll talk to DC.
All right, and we'll bring it back on the second. All right, Board, that concludes the meeting, unless anybody has anything.